लेक्चर ऑनलाइन ही करा रहे हैं सर। ना I just need to get through that wherever that chapter is. Yeah. तो व्यू नहीं ब्लॉक करेगा। आप लोगों को दिख रहा है मेरे पीछे से? Are all of you from 11th standard? No worries. One moment. Ideally, for NDA exams, if you're going to study, you should go ahead and read 9th and 10th standards NCERT books. Okay, that is the Bible for you. That is canon. उसको पढ़िएगा. Ideally, that should work for you. उसमें से जितना भी information होता है, उसका मतलब most of the paper, almost 70 to 80% of the paper is based on that. Sometimes you can even recognize the language of the textbook क्योंकि वो इतनी similar लगती है. Okay. How many of you are not comfortable with Hindi over here? You, I know. Anybody else who does not understand Hindi? You, yeah, you both, I know, Pakka. I'm going to repeat endogenic movements again. Should I go ahead with the landforms instead? Should I go ahead with the landforms instead? If you both are sitting here, then should I go with the landforms? Shall we continue with the landforms made by the wind and made by the cast itself? Huh? Okay, okay. Then we'll change the subject. Then we'll change the topic for today. We'll do landforms. Okay, we'll do geomorphic landforms. I'll give you a very brief idea of what geomorphic landforms are. Geo meaning earth, morph meaning change. Okay, so geomorphic meaning something that changes the surface of the earth. Okay, now that can happen in two ways. Either the energy for changing energy or the power to change the, for the movements that change the surface of the earth come from within the earth. Okay, like tectonic movements are mostly responsible for that. Okay, or then it can be due to external factors. All right, okay, like wind, rain, agents of erosion and deposition, those can be in play, and that is how this can work. Okay, so either way, any of the movements that change the surface of the earth can either be because of the energy that comes from within the earth or factors that are external to the surface of the earth. Okay, here we are looking at all those factors which are external to the surface of the earth. I'll just continue what I was doing earlier because those two kids have exams. Your exams are not so how do you say important. Yeah, they're not really coming. You don't have to attempt an exam in September. Okay, you can just listen to stuff. Whatever you find okay, you can do. Whatever you don't find okay, I can explain it. Chalega? Yeah. Okay. So when we say we are going through geomorphology, here we are going to study aeolian landforms. Okay, aeolian meaning it's an adjective for wind. Okay, adjective for wind meaning when the wind blows through especially desert or open landscapes, what happens is that because of its erosive power, it can create erosional landforms, and whatever sand or little grains of dust it erodes from different places, it goes and deposits in certain places and will form depositional landforms. Okay, okay. You understand erosion and deposition, right? Erosion and deposition समझता है कि, and you've studied agents of erosion before, haven't you? We have studied 5 agents of erosion. We said running water can do that. Running water or rivers, we can that can happen due to sea waves and ocean currents. Wind, हाँ, wind, aeolian topography हो सकती है उससे. Glaciers can do that, in which case we call that a glaciated topography, or then groundwater can do that, in which case a karst landscape is formed. Okay, ठीक है. So I will probably focus on the aeolian and the karst landscapes today. All right, ठीक है, चलेगा. So we are discussing wind as the agent of erosion or deposition over here. We say that the action of wind in deserts or semi-arid regions is usually, it is the action of winds in open landscapes. Now we are talking about arid regions, semi-arid regions, and when the wind blows over there, that is the time when you usually get the aeolian landscape, okay, or the aeolian topography. Aeolian is an adjective for wind. Please remember, aeolian would be an adjective for wind. So now we are saying normally what happens is, does the wind flow unobstructed? Does the wind not flow here where we are currently sitting? It does, right? What is the problem with the wind? Does it remain obstructed or can it flow unobstructed? It will be obstructed, right? There are obstructions to it. Why? Because there are multiple buildings, there are various forms of infrastructure and everything. So the wind cannot flow unobstructed. What happens is that usually in the deserts, it is a very featureless landscape. It's a pretty featureless landscape, right? It's very plain and you don't see a lot of features or a lot of relief in the deserts, okay? Like not the kind of buildings and stuff that you see over here. So the wind can flow unchecked over there. The wind usually flows very fast, very unobstructed, and also add to the fact that usually in the deserts, the wind gets heated up and it will start to swirl. Okay, it will start forming eddies. There will be updrafts, there will be downdrafts. The wind can move in an upward direction, the wind can move in a downward direction. Okay, so eddies, whirlwinds, dust storms, all of these will contribute to the erosive and the depositional features. Okay, that is what we are looking at. Now, the forces usually involved in this will be abrasion, attrition, and deflation. Okay, abrasion meaning the wind is going to flow. Obviously, it is going to carry small particles with it. Okay, little particles of sand. It is going to carry with itself. Okay, where will it carry these particles mostly? As long as it can flow. What does the transportation power of the wind depend upon? How much load can the wind carry? ये किस चीज पे depend करेगा? What will it depend upon? Speed of the wind. Okay, it is the speed of the wind which dictates how much of the load can it carry. Okay, so if the wind is blowing at a greatest, and what defines the what categorizes or what defines the speed of the wind? On what does the speed of the wind depend on? What does the speed of the wind depend upon? समंदर की हवा. विंड बेसिकली क्यों फ्लो करता है? पानी क्यों फ्लो करता है? करंट क्यों फ्लो करता है? चार्ज की वजह से. क्यों? क्योंकि देयर इज अ नेगेटिव चार्ज ऑन वन साइड, पॉजिटिव चार्ज ऑन वन साइड, तो इट फ्लोज फ्रॉम नेगेटिव चार्ज टू पॉजिटिव चार्ज, राइट? तो पानी क्यों फ्लो करेगा? Basically, charge की वजह से meaning you're talking of a difference, a potential difference, right? There's a potential difference. There is a difference in voltage, and that is why the current flows. इतना मानते हैं? Okay, तो पानी क्यों flow करेगा? Level में difference होता है, right? एक पानी ऊपर higher level पे होगा. Guys, there, people, I don't mind if you're not paying attention, but I do mind if you talk and disturb the class. Okay? All right. So पानी क्यों flow करेगा? Because there is a difference in level of water. Okay? एक पानी higher level पे होता है, दूसरा पानी lower level, like दूसरी level low होती है. तो clearly वो difference को negate करने के लिए पानी higher level से lower level तक flow करता है. Okay? तो wind क्यों flow करेगा? Why would the wind flow? Because किस चीज में different pressure difference. There will be a high pressure region somewhere, a low pressure region somewhere, and clearly the wind will flow from a high pressure region to a low pressure region. Okay? ठीक है? So we are saying कि usually जब ये wind blow करता है, तो उसका speed is determined by ये pressure gradient कितना है. जितना ज्यादा pressure gradient होगा, जितना high pressure and low pressure में difference होगा, the more the difference between the high and the low pressure, the faster the wind is. Okay? The more rapidly the wind will flow. Okay? ठीक है? Now the forces usually involved here are abrasion. Abrasion माने क्या होता है? The wind carries these little particles with itself. Okay? These little particles that the wind carries is going to go and scratch against the surface, whichever surface the wind is going to go and dash against or collide against. These particles, the particles that the wind carries goes and scratches against that surface. Okay? Sandpaper देखा है? Have you seen a sandpaper? Have you tried to polish it against a surface? Right? You see the effect that you get. That is the same kind of effect that you will get in abrasion. Okay? बिल्कुल वैसा, उसको सैंड पेपर इफेक्ट ही बोलते हैं, बिकॉज देयर इज अ लॉट ऑफ स्क्रैचिंग एंड पॉलिशिंग. ओके, so you will have one force that is acting here is abrasion. It is the forces of abrasion. The second force is attrition. You say the wind will carry a few particles with itself. Okay, the wind is carrying that load with itself. Now there will be larger sized grains which will go and collide with each other while it is being carried by the wind. The larger size particles go and collide against each other and become smaller in size. Okay, they will reduce because of the friction. They will get reduced. Okay, that force is called as attrition. Okay, and clearly this will this will lead to the deposition. It will add to the deposition over there. Okay, and then the next thing is deflation. ये एक अलग चीज होती है wind में. Deflation meaning, next time I will ask you to leave the classroom. Do you hear me? Okay. Deflation meaning, you understand what is inflating? Balloons are inflated. Meaning, what do? You put in air. You're filling in air. Okay, you're filling something in. That is an inflation. What is a deflation? Removing something. Okay. Inflation meaning, that is a term in economics. Inflation, as in महंगाई बढ़ना, is a term in economics, meaning once again the prices are raised up or filled up. Okay, that is what inflation would mean. But in terms of geography or in any physical terms, what when you say inflation, what you're saying is that something is being filled up. Okay, something like, for example, a balloon is being filled up. That you call as inflation. So what would deflation be? That something is being removed. Okay, so deflation ka process meaning that the wind, when it blows absolutely perfectly in single direction for a large period of time, it will tend to remove the sand. Okay, whatever sand is available in a certain place, it will tend to remove that and pile it in another place. Okay, that is what the wind does. So these are the three forces acting: abrasion, attrition, and deflation. Okay, these are the three forces acting when the wind is in action. Okay, wind in arid or semi-arid regions. Since you're in 11th standard, let's try to define what aridity is. Not fertile, not infertile. Okay, fertility say it is related to fertility, but what is the main factor that defines aridity? pH levels will change. Salt will be available, but what is it really a factor of? What really defines aridity? When I say that a place is arid, what is it majorly lacking? Water. Water. Aridity means it is lacking water. Okay, so if you're saying that a place is arid or semi-arid, then it means clearly that place doesn't receive enough precipitation. Okay, so say places like Pune is not arid, but if you go to that in Maharashtra, if you go to Bid, Jalgaon, Vidarbha, so these regions are arid, semi-arid. Okay, Telangana pretty much arid. Okay, the middle portion of India, the central portion of India is pretty much arid. Madhya Pradesh, why am I showing it to you over here? Chhattisgarh, yes, absolutely. So we are saying this portion, okay? Let's define this portion. We say this Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh region, pretty much arid, right in the middle of it, right in the middle of India, because of the continentality factor, you will find a lot of aridity over here. Rajasthan, once again, arid. A little bit of Haryana and Delhi, arid, okay? No matter how much irrigation you provide there, the place is characterized by its aridity, okay? Okay? So you will find a lot of aridity in this region. Aridity meaning that the place does not receive enough precipitation. There is not enough water available there. Okay, that is what we are saying. Aridity means less availability of water. Okay, fine. So arid meaning it is very less water is available. Semi-arid meaning the water is available sometimes and maybe not sometimes. Okay, not that much. It does not lack water that much, but it definitely lacks water than the normal level. That is what a semi-arid place would be. Okay, okay. मध्य प्रदेश का सदर्न पार्ट वुड बी सेमी एरिड. हाँ, क्योंकि रिवर्स आएंगे ना वहां पे, तो थोड़ा बहुत एरिडिटी बचेगा वहां पे. इट इज स्टिल नॉट, यू आर स्टिल नॉट क्रॉसिंग दैट थिंग. करेक्ट, ये वाला पार्ट यू आर टॉकिंग ऑफ दिस रीजन, राइट? तो यू आर सेइंग यहाँ तक तो ठीक है, क्योंकि वैसे भी मॉनसून विंड्स यहाँ तक जाते हैं. इट इज दिस पार्ट विच विल रिमेन अ प्रॉब्लम, क्योंकि मॉनसून विंड्स वहां तक जाते जाते अपना काफी सारा प्रेसिपिटेशन लूज करेंगे. दे विल लूज अ लॉट ऑफ प्रेसिपिटेशन. यू नो ना हाउ विंड ट्रेवल, हाउ मॉनसून विंड्स गो इन. करेक्ट, दिस इज द वे दे गो इन. ओके, इस तरह से अंदर जाएंगे, इस तरह से अंदर जाएंगे, ऐसे करके, ऐसे घूम के अंदर जाएंगे. राइट, सो वी आर सेइंग कि यहाँ तक जब तक हो तब तक enough precipitation दे देते हैं winds. Okay, by the time you go upwards, the wind becomes drier and drier, and clearly the amount of precipitation received through monsoon will be lesser. And what other way of rainfall do we have? No other options, right? India does not have any options for rainfalls, especially in this region. If you were living in Punjab, you can expect sometime around November, December, you will get some sort of rains from the depressions. Okay, the ones that are brought in from the Mediterranean. At least that remains an option. If you're somewhere in Kerala or Tamil Nadu, at least you might get rainfall here once again in October and December when the monsoons are returning. Okay, so you might get rainfall over here, but in this region, the only time you will actually get a proper rainfall is through monsoon. Okay, those months of monsoon, June to September, that is the only time you can expect any rainfall. All right, okay. We can go slow, na? We don't have to go very fast, huh? Patman, I'm sorry, I did not catch your name. Sorry, Waste. Acha. Okay. So we can go a little slow. Na? I don't need to rush through the landforms. Do I need to rush through the landforms? No. We are okay to go slow. Okay. Okay. So this is what we are saying. We were saying that these are the forces, abrasion, attrition, and deflation, which will act. And this will be the action of wind in arid or semi-arid regions. Okay. Now I have a question here. Are deserts defined by their temperature, or are they defined by their aridity? How are deserts defined? How do you say that this place is a desert and this place isn't a desert? What defines a desert? That the temperatures are very high, that there are sand dunes present, that there is less precipitation. What defines a desert? What can you, less precipitation, right? It is always the amount of precipitation that defines the desert. Deserts need not always be sandy. Okay, they can be rocky also. They can be very rocky. We have examples of that. Then deserts can be sandy, they can be rocky. Deserts can be hot, they may be cold. We have examples of hot deserts as well as cold deserts. So it is not the temperature or the place location of sand dunes or the placement of sand dunes that matters in a desert. What really matters is, does it get enough precipitation? If a place does not get enough precipitation, then clearly it is defined as a desert. Okay, ठीक है, चलेगा? पानी की बहुत 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 कमी होती है. Yes, बहुत ज्यादा कमी होती है. Okay, and the impact that happens, the reason why the erosive action happens in the deserts is because of the sheer speed of momentum. वो जो momentum होता है ना, that is the impact. What is momentum, people? How do you define momentum in physics? Momentum is mass into velocity. Thank you. I was thinking mass into acceleration is force. Then what am I missing over here? Mass into velocity. Okay. Momentum is mass into velocity. So it is the mass and the guns के लिए याद है हमने momentum पढ़ा था. We had seen that. How have you not studied this in physics when you were in school? Momentum is a very normal thing to study in physics, right? Yeah, you've studied that. Car ka momentum, acceleration, what happens in a collision and all that sort of thing. Have you not read that? You have, right? Okay. So we are saying that the impact is due to the sheer force of momentum, because clearly the mass is very less, okay, but the speed is pretty high. The velocity of the wind is pretty high. So it is the momentum that really creates the impact that really causes the erosion, okay? Okay? And all these weathered debris that are lying in the desert regions are removed by sheet erosion. Sheet erosion meaning what happens is either by wind or by rain, okay? I'll tell you by the normal way sheet erosion normally happens, usually by rain. Say normally the deserts do not expect any sort of rainfall. Okay, so for years and years, the soil over there has become very sandy. Okay, sandy soil ka funda kya hota hai? What is the feature of a sandy soil? That the grain size is very large. Okay, when the grain size is this large, clearly the water and air retention capability is very less. Okay, it cannot retain the water. If you give clay water, if you give clay some amount of water or black soil some amount of water, clearly it is going to absorb very well because the water retention capacity is pretty high. Okay, but if that happens if the same thing happens in a sandy soil, clearly the water retention capacity is very low. Okay. So when the rainfall happens, whenever for whatever reasons it rains in the deserts, do you think the sandy soil will be able to retain any water? How will the water retention be? Zero. Okay. It will not be able to retain the water, and definitely the water will not be able to penetrate and seep through downwards. Okay. That is not going to happen. Then if the water is not being absorbed in the soil, what happens to the water? It is washed away as surface runoff. Okay. That entire sheet of water, whatever water is falling, instead of going and being absorbed into the soil, is now washed away as a sheet. Okay. And in this sheet erosion, everything, just say, you know how we sweep the floor? झाड़ू से जैसे फ्लोर को स्वीप करते हैं, वैसे everything in the desert or everything in the path is simply swept away by the rains, okay, or by the wind also. This is called a sheet erosion. It will wipe off everything off the surface, okay, absolutely everything. And that can be very disastrous because unfortunately, if something is lying in its way, in its path, it will clear that also. Human habitations being at the greater risk. Okay, ठीक है, चलेगा? मतलब पानी absorb नहीं हो सकता. The water cannot be absorbed. So what options does the water have? The only option it has is to be swept away. So the water is simply swept away. But while it is being swept away, it will wash off everything that was on the surface. Whatever sand, the pebbles, smaller rocks, everything will be swept off. Okay, that would be called a sheet erosion. That erosion is way much higher than whatever everyday erosion you experience. Okay, ठीक है? All right, जी. The next one is aeolian landforms. Okay. Aeolian landforms are erosional landforms and depositional landforms. Normally, when you are appearing for your UPSC exams, the only thing that they ask you is this, okay? That which of these are erosional landforms, which of these are deposit. Normally, they'll give you 4 options, okay, of various landforms. And then they'll ask you that if this is a landform, which agent is responsible for the formation of this landform, whether it is a fluvial landform or an aeolian landform or a glaciated or a karst landform or something like that. And secondly, the second question you can expect is whether it is erosional by nature or depositional by nature. Okay. So here your options are erosional and depositional. You will have to remember which of these landforms are erosional by nature, which of these are depositional by nature. Okay. So the erosional landforms for aeolian landscapes happen to be pediments and peδιplains, inselbergs, mesas and buttes, ventifacts and drycan turf. These you will have to remember for your exams, NDA exams. Rock pedestals, mushroom rocks of gourd, zugins and yardangs, deflation hollows and caves, bolsons, playas or salinas. Okay, they may also be called shorts. Depositional landforms will be various types of sand dunes, whether it is Balkans or sefts or transverse dunes, parabolic dunes, longitudinal dunes, different types of sand dunes. Okay. Then there will be bajadas, which are depositional plains, and loess, kind of a sand. Okay, a kind of like alluvium, similarly a similar kind of a sand. Loess. Okay, so these are the various erosional and depositional landforms. We'll start to check them out one by one. All right. Okay, here we go. The first erosional landform is a pediment. Okay, can you see this figure? Can you make out this figure? Can you see there's a smaller mountain in the distance, right? And can you see what lies in front of the mountain? A plain region. Okay, a plain featureless region. Okay, and it is pretty rocky over here, right? So this is what we are looking at. A pediment. Pedi means foot. Okay, so pediment meaning you are saying that there is a flat rocky expanse, this entire rocky region in front of the mountain, at the foot of the mountain is essentially what a pediment is. Okay. So this is essentially formed by wind erosion. Okay. ये सब कुछ ऐसे wind and running water के erosion से भी होता है. It is not just wind erosion. Even the rivers contribute to the formation of pediments. Okay. So it is a gently sloping plain. It does not have a steep slope. It is clearly a gently sloping plain. And you can see a kind of a rocky floor. Okay, this is not sandy in nature. This is rocky in nature because everything has been removed. Smaller rocks have been removed, leaving behind just a rocky surface. Okay, and it is found at the foot of the mountain. Hence, it is called as a pediment. Okay, so these are usually formed by the erosion of the mountain front by running water. When running water erodes the place in front of the mountain, this is what is usually formed, a pediment. Okay. Now let's imagine that multiple pediments are joined together by erosion, okay, by fluvial erosion, by wind erosion, multiple pediments get joined together. What you instead get is a pediplain. Can you see this? Okay. And the original mountain at the foot of which you could find one pediment is now reduced to an even smaller hillock, a plain single hillock, which we in this region call it as an inselberg. Okay. This is an example of a residual mountain. It is called as an inselberg because in German, insel means isolated. Berg means mountain. Okay. So this pediplain में ये जो अकेला mountain, original mountain जो एकदम छोटा सा residual relic feature दिख जाता है, that is called as an inselberg. Okay, it gets called as an inselberg. Is this okay? हाँ? Similar feature inselberg जैसा अगर similar feature आपको ये अभी arid regions का part है, right? This is something that you found in arid or semi-arid regions, right? If you find such a thing in a humid or temperate climate, you call that as a monadnock. Okay, I'll show you. I'll just explain what a monadnock is. I'll write down a monadnock and then uske baad. Okay, this is what it is. Okay, so inselbergs in that residual smaller hill in a dry or semi-arid or arid region is called as an inselberg. And the same thing, if you find in a temperate or a humid region, You call that as a monadnock. Okay. It is named after a mountain called as Mount Monadnock in the US. What do you think? Where did I put it? Yeah. नहीं थोड़ा सा इस तरफ है ईस्ट में आता है शायद लेक दिखता है मुझको वो लेक्स के पास में कहीं तो लग रहा है मुझको मैं सोच रही हूँ अच्छा खासा व्यू का है माउंट मोनाडनो का ये अच्छा व्यू है Now what you get because it's a state park ना people ये US का एक national park है जिसके अंदर से ये picture लिया गया है so because of the national park what you can see is you can see the picture through the through the forest and stuff like that you can see the picture through the forest and for what you are missing over here is that it is a plain area surrounding this mountain it's a plain area and this is a small hill over there okay Mount Monadnock is a small hill over here but you can clearly see because of the presence of trees that this is a temperate humid kind of a place okay okay so if this happens in a temperate humid kind of a region then such a mountain such a residual mountain gets called as a monadnock but in fact if this happens in a dry place if it happens in a semi-arid or arid region then that mountain gets called as an inselberg okay okay fine inselberg mane insel meaning isolated insel meaning isolated berg mane mountain for it's a german word okay okay next kind of features are called as mesas and buttes okay mesa spanish में टेबल को मेसा बुलाते हैं ओके अ टेबल गेट्स कॉल्ड एज अ मेसा ओके नाउ लुक एट दिस पर्टिकुलर फीचर ये वाला फीचर को देखिए कैन यू सी द साइड्स ऑफ इट आर एक्सट्रीमली स्टीप व्हाट अबाउट द टॉप इट इज एब्सोल्युटली फ्लैट okay because of the wind erosion the top is flat and the sides are really steep okay so it looks like a table they call it a mesa all right ठीक है so mesas जो होते हैं they are flat table like land masses and the reason is that this is made up of a very resistant rock okay this rock does not erode easily the rest of the landscape erodes easily so this rock remains standing okay last one standing type stuff this rock remains standing okay so this is called as a mesa usually mesa meaning table meaning you will have a flat top and very steep sides okay this looks like a table doesn't it can you make out the shape of this looks pretty like much like a table right the flat top and steep sides right that is what a mesa is ये क्या स्पेन में भी आपको ऐसे फीचर्स बहुत मिलेंगे जहां से ओरिजिनल स्पेनिश है वहां पे भी आपको ये बहुत फीचर्स मिलेंगे हाँ, स्पेन में स्पेनिश बोलेंगे ना बच्चे लेकिन वो रीजन भी थोड़ा एरिड है स्पेन का रीजन कुछ कुछ पार्ट्स में एरिड है था वरना वो गोट रेयरिंग वगैरह कहाँ से करेंगे वहां पे माउंटेन रेयरिंग और गोट्स एंड स्टफ लाइक दैट एनीवेज द सेकंड फीचर इज ब्यूट्स ओके इसको ब्यूट्स बुलाते हैं अब ब्यूट्स जो होते हैं वो मेसा का रिड्यूस्ड वर्जन है ओके इफ mesa is exposed to or subject to a lot of erosion continued erosion what you will essentially get is a small butte okay so you can see a smaller hill and then once again a very steep sided flat top structure above it okay so that is what you call as a butte okay now these buttes are usually in arid countries agar aap ye buttes ko dekho तो they are separated by canyons ये कहाँ गए मेरे buttes and canyons see this okay can you see these butte like structures this is a drawing more than an actual picture but you can get the idea see can you see these buttes the standing hills and can you see the canyon beneath okay so these buttes are usually found embedded within the canyons okay it is they separate the canyons so you can find one butte here and then the canyon in the middle okay that is how it looks like so usually you will find the buttes placed like this in arid countries okay so this is mesas and buttes. Okay, is this clear what mesas and buttes are? Okay, moving forward, you find mushroom rocks or rock pedestals or gaur bulate usko. Okay, so we are looking at these. Now, originally, this rock was like this. Okay, this was a huge hole rock. Okay, this was a complete huge hole rock. Okay, a resistant piece of rock, but a huge hole rock. Okay, now what happens is let's understand how wind works. Okay, wind is going to carry not to a very high level but to some smaller level say up to a height of 1 or 2 feet that is the height for the wind where it will have the maximum erosion why because it carries the maximum number of sand particles with it okay it is the sand particles which will go and collide against the surface and try to erode it through abrasion through deflation through attrition so you're saying that is what is happening okay so this is available only up to a certain height from the ground, a little up from the ground. Okay, so maybe 1 or 2 feet from the ground is where the maximum erosion will happen. As in how you rise upwards, as in how the altitude rises, the amount of sand particles carried by the wind will reduce, because clearly it cannot carry all these weight and sand particles. So it cannot carry all these sand particles above. So clearly the maximum erosion is going to happen in the lower layer of the air. Okay. And this is where the maximum erosion does happen. So first, originally, this was a nice whole complete rock. What you essentially see is that the wind will act mostly in this region, for this much region. Okay. That is the region for which the wind will act. And because of that, the lower section of the rock gets, eroded into a thin stem-like structure. Okay. So you see there is a thin stem-like structure. Also try to understand that the wind, when the wind is acting upon this part of the wind is being deflected in this fashion. Okay. Part of the wind is going out like this. So obviously this structure also gets eroded. It gets that nice rounded shape and it starts looking like a mushroom, right? This is what a mushroom looks like. Right? So it starts looking like a mushroom, somewhat like a mushroom. And that is why these rocks are famously called as mushroom rocks or rock pedestals of gold. Okay. That is what they are called. Is this clear? Is this landform clear? Okay, the effect is that of wind blasting. Wind blasting meaning wind goes and collides against the surface of any rock or piece of rock with a very strong momentum, and because of that, material is removed from that rock. Okay, from the surface. That is what we are saying. You can imagine the size of the. I don't know if you can make out the size of this piece. Can you see a bus over there? A bus carrying human beings. Huh? There is a bus over here, and this is the actual size of the rock. So clearly, these are huge structures. They can be huge structures, okay? Especially in arid regions, this is a pretty spectacular structure, okay? So you will have a thin base, a thin stem at the base, and large rounded tops, like normal mushrooms look like, okay? So these are called as mushroom rocks or rock pedestals and gout, all right? ठीक है. क्या नहीं लगता है? वो पेट्रा लग रहा है आपको? ये वाला लेफ्ट हैंड साइड वाला या राइट हैंड साइड वाला? नीचे वाला? Petra as in Jordan Petra, right? ओ वो वाली. वो मेरे हिसाब से ग्रैंड कैनियन का कुछ पार्ट होगा, वो वाला शहर ऐसे दिखता है मुझे. सचमुच ग्रैंड कैनियन का पार्ट लग रहा है आसपास का सब कुछ. नहीं नहीं, इन्होंने बताया है. सी सी उन्होंने बोला है द ग्रैंड कैनियन एट द फुट ऑफ द टोरोवी looking east. Good heavens, whatever that means. I couldn't make out what the last Toro Reef. I have never heard of what Toro Reef is, and this is probably something related to some kind of tribe or the place associated with the tribe. Native American tribes थे ना, तो उसके साथ associated वैसा कुछ लग रहा है मुझको. So वो वैसा कुछ है. This is Grand Canyon, right? Grand Canyon is a very how do you say, very it is too typical to be replicated some places. Okay, okay. So this is what we are saying is the mushroom rocks and rock pedestals of gold. Okay. The next thing that we look at is Zuigen and Yardangs. Okay. Zuigen and Yardangs are again features, erosional features in a desert or an arid or semi-arid region. लेकिन इसकी एक बहुत स्पेसिफिक फीचर होता है कि these are made up of these only originate in places जहाँ पे आपको combination of hard and soft rocks मिलेगा. Okay. So it should be alternate hard and soft rocks का placement होना चाहिए. वहां पे usually आपको Zuigen and Yardangs मिलते हैं. Okay. For example, in case of Zuigen, आप ठीक से देख लीजिए, वो जो hard and soft rocks है वो vertically, वो horizontally arranged है. Okay. So you will find a block of hard rock, then a piece of soft rock, then again a piece of hard rock. Okay. तो उसमें क्या हो जाएगा? What happens over here is, over here the soft rock will be eroded faster. Okay. The hard rock is resistant, so clearly it does not erode as much. But the soft rock erodes quite faster. So what you instead get is you will get a proper ridge of the hard rock above. The hard rock needs to be above, okay? And then the soft rock, and then the hard rock again below. We are saying that way. So in this, there remains a ridge, okay? Because the hard rock doesn't erode easily, you can clearly see that the hard rock forms a ridge above. Meanwhile, the soft rock goes inside, okay? It goes inside like this. There's a concave structure made out of the soft rock because the soft rock erodes faster, okay? And that is why this kind of a furrow is formed. You understand what a furrow is? Furrow is a hollowed out thing. Okay, furrows are, you hollow something out, holes बनाते हैं, gaps बनाते हैं, तो उसको furrows बुलाते हैं. You will hollow something out. आप वहां से material निकाल लेते हो तो furrows बनते हैं. So ऊपर एक ridge बनती है, नीचे की तरफ below that you find a furrow. Okay, so this type of a landscape is called as a ridge and furrow landscape. Okay, these are called as ridge and furrow landscapes. Usually, I have a picture of a Zuigen, right? Let's just say ये तो शायद इजिप्ट विजिप्ट का कोई पिक्चर है या फिर एरिज़ोना वेरिज़ोना में भी बनाया होगा, आई डोंट नो, गोबी का होगा विद ऑल वो भी डेजर्ट में हो सकता है। ओके सी, दिस इज द हार्ड पार्ट ऑफ इट, दिस इज द हार्ड रॉक, दिख रहा है आपको ऊपर की तरफ जो ऐसा थोड़ा डार्क कलर में है, दैट इज द हार्ड रॉक। ओके, तो वो जल्दी इरोड नहीं होता है, इट इज काइंड ऑफ कमिंग आउट, राइट। उससे नीचे का जो सॉफ्ट रॉक है दैट इज बीइंग इरोडेड फास्टर, तो क्लियरली वो थोड़ा सा अंदर चला गया, यू कैन मेक आउट इट हैज गॉन अ लिटिल इनसाइड, एंड दिस एंटायर रिज ऑफ rock remains like that, and this is what a Zuigen is. Okay, this is how Zuigens are formed. Are this clear? Is this clear? We are saying there is a hard rock above, then a soft rock beneath that hard rock, and then another hard rock beneath. So usually the softer rock gets eroded faster. The harder rock remains as the top. Clearly, it remains as a good top. Okay, and the softer rock will give you that nice concave structure, the furrowed structure. And this is the essential, this is what it ultimately looks like. Okay, the end result is something like this. This is called as a Zuigen. Okay, usko Zuigens बोलते हैं. I'm sorry, this is your first time listening to this stuff, and you're okay with it because you will be asked exactly the same questions in a year when you appear for the exams. When can you appear for the exams? आपका फर्स्ट अटेम्प्ट कब हो सकता है? सितंबर, नेक्स्ट सितंबर का ना, एक साल के बाद आपको ये अटेम्प्ट करना है, तो यू विल हैव टू रिमेंबर ऑल दिस, ये सब याद रखना पड़ेगा आपको। ओके, देन यू गो थ्रू यारदांग्स। ओके, यारदांग्स में क्या है, वंस अगेन यू हैव द सेम कॉम्बिनेशन ऑफ हार्ड एंड सॉफ्ट रॉक अल्टरनेटली प्लेस्ड। ओके, हार्ड रॉक होगा, सॉफ्ट रॉक होगा, एक्सेप्ट इन दिस केस अरेंजमेंट वर्टिकल है। ओके, सो यू आर सेइंग देयर इज हार्ड रॉक ओवर हियर, देन उसके बाजू में सॉफ्ट रॉक, अगेन उसके बाजू में हार्ड रॉक, एंड देन अगेन उसके बाजू में सॉफ्ट रॉक। ओके, क्लियरली हार्ड रॉक्स जो होंगे वो जल्दी से इरोड नहीं होंगे, लेकिन सॉफ्ट रॉक बहुत जल्दी इरोड हो जाते हैं, तो दे लीव गैप्स और स्पेसेस। ओके, जिसको हम टेक्निकली कॉरिडोर्स बुलाते हैं। ओके, दे आर टेक्निकली कॉल्ड एज कॉरिडोर्स, कि आपको दो हार्ड रॉक्स होंगे ऑफ द यारदांग्स, उसके बीच में जो गैप्स मिलते हैं उसको कॉरिडोर्स बुलाते हैं। ओके, एंड द विंड फ्लोज वेरी स्विफ्टली बिटवीन दीज कॉरिडोर्स। ओके, ठीक है, सो वी आर सेइंग द बिकॉज द सॉफ्टर रॉक विल वेयर डाउन फास्टर, तो क्लियरली वो कुछ दिनों में निकल जाएगा पूरा का पूरा सॉफ्ट रॉक, एंड व्हाट यू विल एसेंशियली गेट इज जस्ट अ ब्लैंक place like a corridor. Okay, so these are the ridges of the hard rocks that you can see. I have a yardang over there. This is the Gobi Desert. This is properly the Gobi Desert. Normally the Gobi Desert is characterized by its yellow colored sand. अच्छा सुंदर golden yellow color का sand होता है, but you also have to remember कि ये volcanic region भी है, तो यहाँ पे basalt rock मिलेगा, volcanic landforms मिलेंगे. When weathering of those landforms happen, the essential color of the soil that you get will be somewhat dark in color, blackish in color. Okay, so you can make out these are the yardangs. Okay, this is where the soft rock used to be in the middle, but instead now the place has worn down completely, and what you can see is a gap. Okay, a complete gap, a hollowed out gap. Okay, instead of the soft rock, and the hard rock remains behind. So these are the yardangs. Yardangs are formed thus. Okay, meanwhile yardangs are also subject to tremendous erosion. So you can see that they are also a little spotty, dotted. You know, you can make out that structure like that. Right, they are worn out in some places and less worn out in other places. You can make that out, right? So this is what yardangs look like. Okay, Zuigens and yardangs. Fine. Both of these are important because they are usually called out together. You usually place them together because this is a combination of alternate hard and soft rock. In case of yardangs, the hard and soft rock are placed alternately in a vertical fashion, whereas in case of Zuigens, the hard and soft rocks are clearly placed in a horizontal fashion. Hard rock above, soft rock below. Okay, right? Only then can you have the ridge and furrow structure. नहीं, इसका मशरूम रॉक नहीं बनता, मशरूम रॉक खुद से अपने आप से बनता है। मशरूम रॉक के लिए यू नीड अ नाइस रेक्टेंगुलर और स्क्वायरिश पीस ऑफ रॉक। हाँ, टेबल में जैसा था वैसे, लेकिन वो जो टेबल्स होते हैं ना, मेसाज या ब्यूट्स, ये वेरी ह्यूज स्ट्रक्चर्स, बहुत बड़े बड़े स्ट्रक्चर्स होते हैं, देखिए ना काफी बड़ा है ना वो स्ट्रक्चर, तो उसका मशरूम रॉक बनने के लिए काफी टाइम लगेगा, एंड उसका मशरूम रॉक बनना भी मुश्किल है क्योंकि उसका बेसिकली बेस भी हिल जैसा था ओरिजिनली। तो हमको चाहिए कि एक अच्छा खासा स्ट्रेट पीस ऑफ रॉक जब मिल जाएगा तो उसका बन जाएगा, तो इसका हाइट अगर बहुत कम हो गया तो शायद इसका मशरूम रॉक में ट्रांसिजन हो सकता है, शायद, क्योंकि मशरूम रॉक्स हमेशा वो दे लुक अ लिटिल राउंडेड, यू कैन सी मशरूम रॉक्स के टॉप्स भी थोड़े से राउंडेड ही लगते हैं, whereas मेसाज एंड ड्यूट्स जो होते हैं वो बहुत स्ट्रेट होते हैं, तो फ्लैट फ्लैट टॉप्स, फ्लैट ये, बिकॉज हाइट पे भी है ना, तो विंड उधर ऐसे गोल गोल वाला इरोजन नहीं करेगा, घूमने वाला इरोजन नहीं करेगा, स्ट्रेट वाला इरोजन करेगा। ओके, इट इज द swirling motion of the winds. People see, आपने कभी देखा है, आपने डस्ट स्टॉर्म्स देखे हैं? Have you witnessed dust storms and swirling winds? Why does that happen? बिकॉज विंड के रास्ते में कोई एक ऑब्स्ट्रक्शन आ जाता है, ओके, तो द एयर स्टार्ट्स मूविंग अराउंड इट। देखिए नॉर्मल पानी के अंदर भी देयर इज अ फ्लो ऑफ वाटर, ओके, आप पानी कहीं फ्लो कर रहा होगा एंड उसके बीच में आप पत्थर डाल दो, ओके, तो पानी उसके अराउंड भी फ्लो करता है, एडीज आर फॉर्म्ड अराउंड दैट पार्ट आल्सो। तो सिमिलरली द विंड विल फ्लो इन अ राउंडिश मैनर और इन अ swirling मैनर व्हेनेवर इट देयर इज एन ऑब्स्ट्रक्शन इन इट्स पाथ, ओके, बड़ा सा ऑब्स्ट्रक्शन उसके पाथ में आ जाएगा तो वो गोल गोल घूमेगा एंड उसकी वजह से ऐसे गोल गोल ये मिलते हैं आपको, इरोजन के तरीके मिलते हैं, बिकॉज द विंड इज मूविंग इन अ स्पाइरल फैशन, ओके, थोड़ा सा गोल गोल घूमता है विंड एंड दैट इज व्हाई यू विल गेट दीज राउंडेड ऑफ टॉप्स एंड स्टफ लाइक दैट, ओके। इन अदर प्लेसेस जब विंड बहुत हाई होता है तो इट विल इरोड स्ट्रेट, वो सीधा इरोड करके चला जाएगा, थोड़ा सा अब्रेजन वगैरह करके चला जाएगा, पॉलिशिंग इफेक्ट दे देगा वो, ओके, ठीक है। एंड यहाँ पर स्पेसिफिकली आपको वो कॉम्बिनेशन मिल रहा है ना हार्ड एंड सॉफ्ट रॉक्स का, इसलिए उसके इतने टिपिकल स्ट्रक्चर्स बन रहे हैं, स्पेसिफिक स्ट्रक्चर्स बन रहे हैं लाइक ज़ुइगेंस एंड यारदात्स के, ओके। कहाँ पे? गोबी में ये नॉर्मली हर डेजर्ट में मिल सकता है, लेकिन गोबी के बहुत स्पेक्टेकुलर दिखते हैं यारदात्स। ज़ुइगेन तो हर तरफ मिल जाएगा। हमारे यहाँ के डेजर्ट मोस्टली सैंडी है, थार की डेजर्ट जो है वो मोस्टली सैंडी है, तो हमारे पास ये रॉकी स्ट्रक्चर के जो लैंडफॉर्म्स होते हैं वो नहीं मिलेंगे। एरिजोना वगैरह जहाँ पे आप जाओ, ईरान की, हाँ, परफेक्ट डेजर्ट, ईरान की जो डेजर्ट है वो थोड़ी सी रॉकी है, तो आपको वहां पे ये सारी चीजें मिल जाएंगी। इजिप्ट में मिलेंगी, इजिप्ट का भी डेजर्ट थोड़ा है। सऊदी अरेबिया का डेजर्ट वंस अगेन अ लिटिल मोर सैंडी, सो यू विल गेट ऑल दोस। ओमान की डेजर्ट पता नहीं है मुझको, रॉकी है कि सैंडी ये मुझे नहीं पता, बट आई एम अज्यूमिंग रॉकी है ओमान की भी डेजर्ट, ओके, आई विल टेक योर वर्ड फॉर इट। बट जो रॉकी डेजर्ट्स होते हैं वहां पर यूजुअली ये लैंडफॉर्म्स बनेंगे। सैंडी डेजर्ट्स में मोस्टली डिफ्लेशन हॉलोज बनेंगे, या फिर मतलब हमारे यहाँ की जो डेजर्ट है थार डेजर्ट, तो वहां पे आपको डिफ्लेशन हॉलोज मिलेंगे या फिर ड्यून्स मिल जाएंगे, सैंड ड्यून्स मिल जाएंगे अलग अलग तरीके के, ओके। दैट इज व्हाट यू फाइंड, यू नीड टू हैव सम पीस ऑफ रॉक ना फॉर इट टू इरोड इनटू दिस फॉर्म। कहीं तो रॉक होना चाहिए ना, थार में कहीं रॉक्स ही नहीं है हमारे पास। हमारे पास थार में फॉर माइल्स एंड माइल्स टुगेदर यू जस्ट हैव रॉकी फ्लोर है, लेकिन वो थोड़ा ईस्ट को है हमारा सैंडी। यू अंडरस्टैंड राजस्थान का, दिस इज फिजिकल राइट, इंडिया यू आर सीइंग, देखिए थार डेजर्ट को देखिए, दिस इज द वेस्टर्न पार्ट, इज द सैंडी सैंडी पार्ट, उसको हम मरुस्थली बुलाते हैं। एंड ये जो ईस्टर्न पार्ट है दैट इज द राजस्थान बागड़, दैट इज द ये थोड़ा सा हल्का सा रॉकी पार्ट, लेस सैंडी, हाँ, थोड़ा सा कम सैंडी, वेरी गुड, वो वहां से अरावलीज भी आते हैं उसकी साइड में, है ना, तो दैट इज एन इम्पोर्टेंट पार्ट अगेन हमारे लिए, क्योंकि वो हिल्स के पीछे हमको थोड़ा सा अभी, इफ यू आर रीडिंग द न्यूज, एवरीबडी इज टॉकिंग अबाउट द अरावली रेंज, बिकॉज रिमेम्बर सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने बीच में से बोला कि नहीं, जो हिल्स 100 मीटर के ऊपर होंगे वही प्रोटेक्टेड हिल्स माने जाएंगे, बाकी सबको तुम करो, रियल एस्टेट बना दो, माइनिंग करो, जो मर्जी करो। एंड देन एवरीबडी एल्स गॉट, मतलब एवरीबडी got up in arms, because that is not, this is a very important ecological structure in India. And सिर्फ वो पार्ट नहीं है, अनफॉर्चुनेटली इट इज ऑल्सो समथिंग दैट इज कीपिंग ऑल द डेजर्टिफिकेशन एट बे। अगर ये अरावलीज को बीच में से हटा दिया तो वो डेजर्ट सारे प्रोग्रेस करेंगे, दे विल एडवांस फॉरवर्ड, ओके। एंड ये जो पूरा रीजन है आपका मालवा बुंदेलखंड प्लेटो तक पहुंच जाएंगे, सो वी आर सेइंग वो डेजर्ट्स विल एडवांस फ्रॉम देयर, यू डोंट वांट दैट टू हैपन। ऊपर से अरावलीज के जो हिल्स है, वी नो कि वो ऐसे सीधे डायरेक्शन में, राइट, वो मानसून विंड्स के डायरेक्शन में आते हैं, लेकिन उनके बीच में ना ऐसे वर्टिकल फ्रैक्चर्स है, वर्टिकल गैप्स, ओके। तो जब बारिश आती है तो वो पानी खुद वहां पे, वो पानी को रोक नहीं सकते, लेकिन जितना भी बारिश का पानी आता है वो सारा नीचे पर्कोलेट करता है एंड लैंड वाटर को बढ़ाता है, ग्राउंड वाटर के लेवल्स को बढ़ाता है, ओके। सो दैट इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट फॉर अस, बिकॉज इट विल सपोर्ट 4 स्टेट्स ओवर हियर, वो 4 स्टेट्स को सपोर्ट करता है, दिल्ली, हरियाणा, राजस्थान, गुजरात, 4 स्टेट्स को सपोर्ट करता है। वहां पे अच्छा ग्राउंड वाटर मिलता है आपको। सो जितना आप वहां पे माइनिंग या बाकी का इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर डेवलपमेंट करने की कोशिश करेंगे, उतना ज्यादा अरावलीज का जो इकोलॉजी है वो खराब हो जाएगा, राइट। उसका वाइल्ड लाइफ का हमको पता नहीं है, उसके फॉरेस्टेशन का हमको पता नहीं कि कितने बुरे इफेक्ट्स हो सकते हैं। एंड वंस दैट हैपेंस, एक तो आप ग्रीनरी डिस्ट्रॉय करोगे, दूसरा आई अग्री कि हमारे पास रहने के लिए जगह नहीं बची है, दैट इज व्हाई वी नीड इट, आई अंडरस्टैंड द कंसर्न देयर कि वो एरिया तो बहुत पॉपुलेटेड है, राइट, नॉर्थ इंडियन रीजन इज एक्सट्रीमली पॉपुलेटेड, वेरी डेंसली पॉपुलेटेड, बिकॉज प्लेन्स है वहां पे, so clearly you need more and more land for people to live. I get that part also, but you cannot destroy a hill for that, right? Aravlis are an important ecological system of India. You cannot, you have to make every effort to protect it now, instead of letting चले तो थोड़ा सा चला गया तो कोई बात नहीं. This cannot be the attitude when protecting the Aravlis. Okay. Okay. So like I was telling you, ये जो बागड़ वाला region है, राजस्थान बागड़ वाला, that is a little हाउ डू यू से, वो थोड़ा सा हल्का सा रॉकी है, बट फिर भी एंड हल्के से सैंड्स होते हैं, लेकिन वहां पे भी आपको ऐसा रेजिस्टेंट रॉक के फीचर्स नहीं मिलेंगे, ओके बहुत कम मिल जाएंगे। तो इस तरफ आपको शायद वो मिल जाए। हाँ, डेजर्ट जो एक्चुअली इंडिया में डेजर्ट करके फेमस है, वहां पे आपको मोस्टली सैंडी डेजर्ट्स मिलेंगे, ओके। यू डोंट फाइंड दोज रॉकी स्ट्रक्चर्स जिसके इरोजन होके फिर मशरूम रॉक्स बनेंगे या फिर सैंड्स एंड मेसाज एंड ब्यूट्स बनेंगे वगैरह, वो सब चीजें नहीं मिलेंगी आपको यहाँ पे, ओके। वो यू हैव टू गो टू अ लिटिल रॉकियर प्लेस, like you said Iran or Egypt or something like that, okay? और Arizona is famous, वो वहां पे ऐसी सारी चीजें बनती रहती है। इन यूएसए, Arizona in USA, that is what I'm saying, okay? ठीक है, अभी गुड हियर। नेक्स्ट वाला जो है वो पत्थर है, ओके, उसको बुलाते हैं वेंटिफैक्ट्स। डेजर्ट के जो पत्थर होते हैं ना, the rocks in the desert, they usually are not like those rounded off pebbles, okay? Even if there is a rounded off pebble, what happens is because of the sand which keeps blasting on one surface, can you see it gets a nice face? You will see that it gets a very plain face and very sharp edges, okay? Instead of the nice rounded pebble that you will get, a nice rounded stone that you get, what you instead get because of the sand blasting effect is this. You will find a faceted stone, okay? A faceted stone meaning it will have a nice face and it will have these little edges. Can you make out these edges over here and the faces? Okay. So these are called as ventifacts. Okay. The number of faces that it has defines कि उसको क्या बोलते हैं. For example, अगर 3 faces होंगे, if it has 3 faces, then you call that as a tricanter. Okay. Dry, once again, it's a German word. Dry means 3. 3. German dry means 3. Okay. So we are saying कि इनको बुलाते हैं ventifacts, okay? Such pebbles which face the sandblasting, which go through sandblasting and hence are faceted, become faceted after that. They get flat faces, sharp edges. Such stones are called as ventifacts, okay? Once again, an erosional feature of the deserts. Can you see this? Can you see the rest of these stones also? They look like they have sharp edges. They look like they have faces, right? Very rarely will you get that rounded off stones there, okay? In the deserts. हाँ, सिटी में मिल जाएंगे, सिटी में नदी नदी के बाजू में मिलेंगे, सिक्किम में मिलेंगे ऐसे स्टोन्स या राउंडेड स्टोन्स। सिक्किम में क्यों मिलेंगे? आई मीन व्हाई स्पेसिफिकली सिक्किम? that will apply for most of the eastern northeastern region because पूरा का पूरा especially वो जो region है वो तो peninsula है, right? Peninsula का extension है। Once again, okay, we'll go over here. ये वाला जो पार्ट है, दिस पर्टिकुलर रीजन, हाँ, ये गारो खासी जयंतिया हिल्स वाला, दैट इज रिगार्डेड एज एन एक्सटेंशन ऑफ द इंडियन पेनिनसुला। ये जो हमारा इंडियन पेनिनसुला है ना, ये नीचे वाला ट्राइंगल, हाँ, ये नीचे वाला ट्राइंगल जो है, उसी को एक गैप मिल जाती है, गारो खासी गैप, एंड देन उसके आगे वो जो स्ट्रेट शिलोंग प्लेटो जिसको हम बुलाते हैं, ये वाला, तो दैट इज द एक्सटेंशन ऑफ इट, ओके। दिस पार्ट इज सिंपली द एक्सटेंशन ऑफ द पेनिनसुलर प्लेटो। तो वहां पर आपको द रॉक्स दैट यू आर टॉकिंग अबाउट इज आर अवेलेबल लाइक दैट। वहां पे आपको टिपिकल इग्नियस रॉक के हार्ड रॉक्स, हार्ड पत्थर मिल जाएगा आपको, ओके। और वो प्लाटो वाला पत्थर हार्ड होगा, लेकिन बाकी हर जगह पे अभी ये वाला रीजन देखेंगे आप, ये वाला तो ये तो प्लेन्स है, ये तो ब्रह्मपुत्र के प्लेन्स है, राइट? सो यहाँ पे तो आपको मोस्टली अलुवियल सॉइल मिल जाएगा, दैट इज व्हाट यू विल फाइंड। एंड देन वंस अगेन ये सारी रेंजेस है, तो जो चीज प्लेटो के लिए अप्लाई होगी, ये तो हिमालयन पार्ट समझा जाता है। This is considered a part of the Himalayas, a part of the Himalayan reach origin, right? तो we are saying कि फिर ये वाले जो है, ये सारी regions, तो वो तो वापस पथरीले ही होंगे, क्योंकि once again hills है वहां पे, there are hills and mountains formed over there, okay? ये चला गया तो अच्छा, we were done with ventifacts for dry canter. Now we'll go to deflation hollows, okay? Deflation hollows जो होते हैं ना, when we say deflation hollows or blowouts, okay, we call them as blowouts. Deflation, like I said, something is like, you know, you wind acts upon the surface by continuously blowing on it and removing material from the surface, okay? For example, say we are looking at this particular rock, okay? So the wind keeps acting in the same direction. There is a weaker section of the rock. Obviously, this hollow starts because the rock was weak in this section. Okay, the rock was a little vulnerable in this section. So clearly, materials from that region starts getting removed faster. Okay, वहाँ का material जल्दी जल्दी निकाला जाएगा, and essentially what you get over here is a nice hollow, a little cave sort of a thing. Okay, a cave or a, you know, how do you say, a hole or a hollow sort of thing. Okay, so these are called as deflation hollows. Deflation hollows जो होते हैं, they can be formed either vertically, like in this case, or horizontally, like in this case. Okay. So, for example, what has happened over here is wind has blown constantly in a single direction for a long time and with a good amount of speed. Okay. The wind is blowing in this direction with a good amount of speed, or like this, mostly like this. Okay. So, the wind has blown in a certain direction, in a direction without changing that direction for a good amount of speed and a good amount of time. And it keeps removing sand from this region. Okay. यहाँ से जो sand है, the wind keeps removing that and piling it someplace closer. Okay. For example, it has piled that sand over there. Okay. So it keeps removing sand from one place and then dropping it someplace else, maybe because of the presence of vegetation or something. But it is clearly depositing the land, soil somewhere nearby. Okay. The sand someplace nearby. And then finally, sometimes this place becomes a hollow, a proper hollow. Okay. Okay. Now, sometimes because of faulting or because of other tectonic activities, this region can actually, the depression can actually reach the water table. And once it reaches the water table, water will start to ooze upwards. Okay. Once the water starts oozing upwards, that is the beginning of an oasis, because if the water is available, clearly you can expect vegetation that can, serve as a stop, a pit stop between, when you're traveling in the desert or something like that. And that is the beginning of an oasis. Not every deflation hollow can cause an oasis, can give rise to an oasis, but this is usually how oasis begin. Okay. An oasis can begin in this fashion. All right. Not all deflation hollows can also reach the groundwater table. That is also something that you need to understand. There is a very famous depression called as the Katara depression, okay, in Egypt. तो वो दुनिया का बहुत बड़ा डिप्रेशन. It's a very huge depression. Okay, it spreads for miles and stuff like that. Okay, it's a it's a great depression. It's a huge depression. Uh, Notes. Somebody in the chat is asking for notes. ना? Give me. हाँ हाँ मेरे पास PDFs है लेकिन can you send me? No, I can't ask for that. Can you ask somebody in the class, say in the staff like Farana ma'am or somebody else, to share my number with you or your number with me, and then I can share the PDF directly with you. That should work if you really want the PDF, because you need to be on the group. I don't know if this kid is on the group. No, they are external kids. I don't know if they are on the class group. Normally, with you people, I'll send it on the group, and then you can have the PDF and you can hopefully study it. But with these people, I really don't know who's on the group and who's not. Okay, people, do you understand what deflation hollows are? Faulting eddy action की वजह से भी होता है, and eddy action will remove a lot of wind. Okay, it is the steady flow of the wind also. Sometimes eddy actions also, because they have a greater capacity to remove the winds, right? So deflation hollows can be formed like that. Are we good here, people? हाँ मैं वही सोच रही थी. Take a 5 minute break, not more than that. We'll take a 5 minute break, and I will start talking in exactly 5 minutes more. Okay, it is 2:55 by my watch. I'll start talking at 3 again. Okay.
सेप्सिस अपने यहाँ का तो नहीं लग रहा है मुझको, यहाँ की सेप्स। चाइना का भी नहीं लग रहा है मुझे वो वाला। ये वाला पिक्चर कहाँ से बताया होगा मुझे। अच्छा, येलो रिवर चाइना का है, हाँ। वो सारे चाइना के हैं। हाँ फाइन वो उसको शान बुलाते हैं वहाँ पे, शान। सदर्न माउंटेन्स फेमस है ना उनके यहाँ के। उनके यहाँ पे बर्थडे भी ऐसे विश करते हैं कि आपकी जिंदगी सदर्न माउंटेन्स जितनी लंबी हो। हम लोग ये कौन सा तरीका, बट देन ठीक है, गो हेड करो ऐसे, हाँ। कल्चरली वैसे बोलते हो। चाइना इज वेरी ब्लेस्ड लाइक दैट, जॉब नेचुरली। यस। I need a simple. क्या हुआ था इसमें? लेपीज में कौन गिर? अच्छा, उसमें आइडियली फंसना नहीं चाहिए इंसानों ने, लेकिन आ, हाँ, फंस सकता है। बट क्यों, क्यों कोई लपीज पेवमेंट को ट्रैवल करके जाने की कोशिश करे? अच्छा। ओ, रियली? अच्छा यार, आई फील दैट इज वेरी, वो थाईलैंड में केव में फंस गए थे। हाँ, आई रिमेम्बर दैट, वो जाके केव में फंस गए थे। आई रिमेम्बर दिस। हाँ, ये बहुत पुरानी बात है। एंड एवरी वन ऑफ दोस किड्स एंड दे केम आउट आफ्टर वेरी लॉन्ग टाइम, राइट? उनकी टीचर ने उनको मेडिटेशन करने के लिए बोला था। ओ, हाँ, यू गेट दैट, वो बुद्धिस्ट ये है ना वहाँ पे कल्चर, तो उसमें तो मिल जाएगा वाला। कहाँ का? ये वाला? स्कॉटलैंड के यहाँ पे लग रहा है आपको? मुझे कुछ दिखाई नहीं दे रहा है यहाँ पे, उन्होंने कुछ बोला नहीं है। हाँ, वो लैंडस्केप वहां का वैसे लग सकता है, बट यू आर राइट, दिस मे बी ईस्ट यूरोपियन ऑल्सो। आई कांट, आई जस्ट बाय द नेचर ऑफ द रॉक आई कांट से कि वो कहाँ से है। ए चलो पीपल, लेट्स स्टार्ट अगेन। हाँ, ऐसे केव में फंस गए थे, ऐसे केव में फंस गए थे। अग्री। अच्छा, हाँ, अच्छी किस्मती के बच्चे बाहर आए। ओके, वी आर बैक ऑन। We were done with the erosional landforms of the wind, you know, that are formed because of the wind. Now we look at the depositional ones. Okay, guys, people, hello, hello, we are back. Settle? Okay, ठीक है. Sir, sir, hello. आगे देखिए. All right. Now we are looking at sand dunes. Okay, the very basic depositional feature in all land in all deserts is the sand dunes. Okay, we are looking at the sand dunes. Sand dunes पता होता है हमको. एक मिनट, अब मेरा सब गुम हो गया है, तो अभी मेरे को सैंड ड्यून मिलना मुश्किल है. हाँ, ये इसको सैंड ड्यून बुलाते हैं, ये नॉर्मल सैंड ड्यून होता है. ओके, सो वी आर सेइंग सैंड ड्यून्स आर द मोस्ट बेसिक फीचर ऑफ डेपोजिशन इन डेजर्ट्स. ऑलराइट, ठीक है. पीपल, कैन यू प्लीज नॉट टॉक? हाँ, कुछ नहीं, मैं देख रही हूँ. तो फॉर्मेशन ऑफ सैंड ड्यून जो होता है ना, द फॉर्मेशन ऑफ अ सैंड ड्यून विल, गर्ल्स, girls please, the formation of a sand dune will always depend upon the amount of sand available. Okay, it is not like you will always see the same kind of sand dunes. Okay, the shape and structure of the sand dunes varies, and the reason why it varies is because it will depend upon what is the direction of the wind, whether the wind will flow continuously in the same direction. Okay, and what kind of sand, how much sand is available, and what is the slope of the land. Okay, these are the three things, guys. Anybody who talks now will leave the classroom. Huh? I know it is not such a big deal for you, but I'm just telling you that I will not entertain any excuses. Okay, so we are saying that the formation of a sand dune will depend upon the amount of sand available, the slope of the land, and the direction of the wind. Okay, these are the three things that decided. Dunes का एक और फंडा रहता है. Dunes ना move. Dunes will always move. They will not remain in the same place. They are very temporary in nature. Okay, so the dunes will keep advancing in a certain direction of the direction of the wind. Okay, whichever direction the wind blows in, the dunes will keep advancing in that direction. Okay, and they may shift, or they may they might shift, they may reverse, they might advance, all this depending on which season it is and what is the direction of the wind. Okay, so if you are trying to find your way about the desert based on this dune I had seen there and that is why this is the right direction,
direction. This is why it is very difficult to find your place in the deserts or make your way in deserts, because you don't have landmarks over there. No, you don't have markers for the land that this is यहाँ से right जाएंगे, वहां से left जाएंगे, ये सब नहीं possible होता है. Okay. And dune migrations can be scary because they might lead to desertification. That means that whatever fertile land is also available at the border of the desert also becomes occupied by the desert, which means you're losing out on fertile land, and you don't want that. Okay, you don't want desertification in that sense, right? Now we are looking at the various kinds of various kinds of dunes. The very first kind of dunes are called as barkels. Okay, you girls at the very back, please leave the classroom. A black shirt and black top. Something black you're wearing. No, not you, Fatima. The people sitting behind you. Did you hear me? Leave the classroom, meaning go out of the classroom. You have a very nice smile, but that doesn't help, bache. Anyways, so the very first sand dune that we are looking at is a barken. The most standard sand dune that you get, a barken is the most standard sand dune. Okay, this is the sand dune that you've seen. You see that this is the shape of, this is the direction of the wind. Can you make out this is the direction of the wind? The wind is blowing in this direction. So usually what happens is, because of an obstruction like a small plant or something, wind starts piling over here. So the sand starts piling in this direction. Okay, so the slope, and this is called as the windward slope. Okay, this slope is called as the windward slope. So this slope is usually very gentle. Okay, the slope is very gentle. And then what happens over here, because of this obstruction, eddies are set up and it will remove all the sand from over here, and this slope will become quite steep. Okay, this slope becomes quite steep and you get these two wings or horns over here. Okay, can you make these out? हाँ, सहारा में मिलेंगे आपको, ये थार में भी यही मिलेगा. Okay, can you make out these wings or horns? Okay, these are called as wings or horns. They look like two extensions of the dune. Okay, so here you slate shirt outside. Go out. Yeah, you were talking, right? So you should leave. You want to take your friends along with you? Go ahead. I don't mind, but leave. If you are under the impression, or if you are hovering under the misapprehension that I am going to give you a nice written invitation to leave the classroom or something, that's not happening today. Okay, that's not happening ever. You just, when I say walk out of the classroom, just walk out of the classroom. There's no need to argue or just procrastinate or waste your time or mine. तो आपको अभी जो भी आपके मन में अजीब अजीब सवाल होंगे, अच्छे अच्छे सवाल होंगे, वो आप बाहर जाके पूछ सकते हैं. I had told you I won't entertain any excuses, right? Didn't I say that? Then can you please leave? Can we at least remain this much polite to each other? Okay. ठीक है, are we good here? We are saying that the windward slope is always gentle, and then most of the sand is removed from this place. Most of the sand is removed by eddies. Okay, most of that sand is removed. What you instead get is a steep slope over here, the leeward slope. Windward meaning the side that faces the wind. Okay, leeward meaning the one on the other side. Okay, so that is called as windward and leeward. So the windward slope is always gentle for the barkens, and the leeward slope is pretty steep. Okay, and most of the sand in front of this leeward slope is removed away by the eddies that are set up, and you will get these two dune wings over here, and they will always be in direction of the wind. Okay, whatever the direction of the wind is, you will get the dune wings in that direction or the horns in that direction. Are we good here? This is what a standard barken looks like. Okay, barkens ऐसे दिखते हैं. अभी जैसे barkens होते हैं, वैसे ही आपके बाकी टाइप्स के ड्यून्स होते हैं. नॉर्मली बार्कन्स में क्रेसेंट शेप ड्यून्स होते हैं. वो जो हाइट होती है वो सबसे बीच में मैक्सिमम होती है, राइट? वो बीच में एपेक्स के ऊपर मैक्सिमम हाइट होती है उसकी. द लैंड इज प्रीटी फ्लैट वहां पर यूजुअली, देन दीज विंड्स ऑफ dunes are formed, and the wind direction has to be constant. Okay, and the amount of supply of the sand has to also be greater. It cannot do with less amount of sand. Okay, the amount of sand supplied has to also be good enough. Okay, look at sets जो होते हैं, they are similar to Barkans. Saif is a, in the local language the word means a sword. Okay, तलवार होती है उस word का मतलब. So saifs जो होते हैं they are similar to Barkans in the sense that उनका सिर्फ एक ही wing होता है. Can you see saifs over here? Okay, they just have one single wing instead of the two wings that Barkans have. Saifs usually have just one wing. Okay, and they are longer and higher. Usually they are long in nature and a bit higher. Okay, sorry, तलवार की तरह, डैगर की जैसे, हाँ डैगर की जैसे, तलवार की जैसे. सी नाउ एवरीथिंग इज लॉस्ट. पता नहीं कहाँ कहाँ क्या खोल रखा है मैंने. हाँ ये रहे सेट्स. सेट्स लुक लाइक दिस. ओके, कैन यू मेक आउट इसका एक एंड ज्यादा है एंड एक एंड काफी लॉन्ग है. यू कैन मेक दैट आउट, राइट, दैट वन एंड इज अ लिटिल लॉन्गर एंड द अदर इज अ लिटिल कर्व्ड. ओके, तो यू कैन सी वन हॉर्न विंग ओवर देयर and the others are mostly curved. Okay, this is what cephs are going to look like. Cephs इस तरह से दिखते हैं. Okay, the next kind of this is a transverse dune. Transverse dunes is when multiple Barkans join together, and you're not looking at larger Barkans, you're looking at a bit smaller Barkans. We are saying they are low in height and they may be very long. Okay, so such dunes are called as transverse dunes. Okay, एक minute, I'm just doing away with this. This is cephs. We did with cephs. See, this would be a good example of transverse dunes. Okay, it looks, now the wind direction is clearly this. We are saying this is the wind direction. Okay, this is the wind direction, and these are transverse as in formed, perpendicular to the winds, to the wind direction. And this kind of dunes formed will be called as transverse dunes. Okay, they are usually low in height, multiple Barkans joined together, and that is when transverse dunes will be formed. Okay, longitudinal will be a little similar in the sense that they are formed, they look like long lines. Okay, longitudinal dunes jo hote hain, they look like, can you make out, longitudinal dunes will look like long lines in the sand. Okay, they will look like proper long lines in the sand. यहाँ पर आपको sand का जो amount है, the amount of sand required or the supply of sand here is pretty less. Okay, आपको बहुत ज़्यादा sand की जरूरत नहीं होती, except you want that the wind to blow continuously in one direction, change a little and then again blow in the same direction. Okay, that is what is happening. So the wind can blow either in the same direction for a long time or it can change directions also. But longitudinal dunes, by clearly they are a little, they are a little higher, they are a little narrower, and clearly they are way longer. Okay, they are much longer. And this is once again when not a lot of sand is available. Okay, this happens when not a lot of sand is available over there. Okay, parabolic dunes. Parabolic dunes are usually when they are reverse Barkans. Okay, they are the opposite shape of the Barkans. उनको parabolic dunes बोलते हैं. Okay, they are formed when sandy surfaces are covered with vegetation, and then clearly the piling up of the sand becomes a little different. Barkans का जहाँ पे steep slope होता था वहाँ पे उनका gentle आता है, जहाँ पे gentle था वहाँ पे steep slope आता है. Okay, the slopes direction is reversed obviously. So those are parabolic dunes. Longitudinal dunes we've already seen, and then there are the star-shaped dunes. Can you make out this over here, the star-shaped dune? Yeah, it looks like a star, where the dunes are in multiple directions, okay? Because the wind constantly changes direction, okay? Because the wind will constantly change its direction, that is why the piling up of the sand keeps on changing from place to place, just as and how the wind changes direction. And that is why you get that star shape of the dune, okay? The star shape of the dune is found here. That is called as a star-shaped dune, all right? Okay? And that finishes off your sand dunes. The next feature that you can see is called as a bajada. Okay, once again a Spanish word. I don't know what that word means anymore. Bajada. Bajada. Okay. Bajada is once again a Spanish word for something. So bajada is essentially a fluvial depositional plain. Okay. Remember how we had seen in earthworms. Okay. Remember how we had seen in depositional plains, what had happened was that when the river used to come down a mountain, whether it was especially when it was a gentle mountain slope, all the load that the river used to carry with itself, especially the finer load, used to be spread out in the form of a fan. Okay, वो Japanese fans नहीं होते, वैसे shape में the load is spread out at the foot of the mountain. Okay, so that is a fluvial depositional feature, right? Alluvial fans are a fluvial depositional feature. Now, what happens is, if this happens, if the same thing happens in an arid or semi-arid region, then what happens is multiple of these fluvial, alluvial fans coalesce or join together, and what you essentially get is a feature like this. Okay, वो दो mountains दिखाई दे रहे हैं आपको, उसके बीच में से वो river का ये सब कुछ नजर. Can you make out this fan type structure? Can you make out this fan type structure? Can you make out this structure? No? So this is called as a bajada. Okay, this is what we call as a bajada because it happens. It's a depositional landform made from fluvial deposition, but essentially it happens in arid or semi-arid regions. Deserts में होता है, तो वो हम डेजर्ट के लैंडफॉर्म्स में इंक्लूड करते हैं. ओके, बाजाता इज अ टाइप ऑफ अ पिज्जा. आई हैव नेवर हर्ड ऑफ इट. इंडिया में मिलता है. हाँ ओके ठीक है, तो फिर ठीक है. लाइक मेरे घर पे वो डोमिनोज का लिस्ट एंड पूरा कैसे लाइक सबको बाय हार्ट है, तो दिस कैन बी द केस. एनीवेज, लोएस्ट करके देखते हैं. ओके, लोएस्ट जो होते हैं, दैट इज अ फाइन येलो कलर्ड डस्ट. कैन यू सी ओवर हियर? या that this is the fine yellow colored dust that is available. It is similar to alluvium, like how rivers have the silt and hence the alluvium, right? So lowest is also that form of a, it also comes from the erosion. It is the depositional landform of the wind. Okay, they can form lowest plateaus, they can form lowest plains. It can even be glacial in origin, even in very cold and freezing regions also you may find this. Okay, it is loamy, it is rich in lime, and that is why it is considered fertile also. Okay, the reason why I'm showing you the Vanga river beside it is because ये जो river है in China, it is famously called as the yellow river. Okay, कहाँ गया अब मेरा Vanga? I'm just making away with the dunes. I don't want any more. See, this is the Vanga river. Okay, आप उसको शायद हुआंग हे करके प्रोनाउंस करते होंगे. चाइनीज में उसको वांग बुलाएंगे. ओके, या वांग बुलाएंगे. आई एम नॉट रियली श्योर हाउ दैट. वांग नहीं बुलाएंगे, वांग बुलाएंगे. वांग, वांग or Wang He. I'm not sure because I don't know Mandarin. So Huang, हाँ, Wang. How you say Huawei? Huawei, Huawei, right? So वैसे ही Wang He, वैसे. Okay. हाँ, वांग्यासारखं साउंड करतात ते. Very correct. Earlier students also used to tell me the same thing, Wang, and I'm like, fine, just remember the name of the river, Yellow River. Okay. You this river, it is a little yellowish in color, right? You can clearly see it is brownish yellowish in color. The reason why it is brownish or yellowish in color is because it passes through this lowest plateau. Okay, and when it is passing through that lowest plateau, it does not begin as the yellow river. Okay, while it is passing through that lowest plateau, what happens is all that lowest is blown into the river, and because of that, it carries all that lowest with itself and looks yellow in color. Okay, that is the logic of the Vanga river. All right. So in the you find the lowest deposits near in the Yellow River Basin in the Great Plains of USA. USA के Great Plains में भी मिलता है. It is by another. It is called by another name called as limon in Europe and as adobe in USA. Okay, it is called by adobe in by the name adobe in USA and by the name limon in Europe. Okay, you need to remember this: lowest, limon, adobe. Okay, fine. Is this good? It is the same thing, interchangeably used except in different regions. All right. India में ऐसे कोई lowest plateaus वगैरह होते नहीं अपने यहाँ पे. अभी गुड या पीपल समझा कहाँ पे होते हैं? हाँ, येलो रिवर वहां पे मिलता है आपको. ओके, अब थोड़े क्वेश्चंस कर लेते हैं. ओके, फर्स्ट स्टेटमेंट, barkans are formed when the supply of sand is abundant, and second statement says barkans appear parallel to the wind direction. We are just doing for the aeolian landforms, karst landforms का बाद में कर लेते हैं. चलो बताइए. barkans are formed when the supply of sand is abundant and barkans appear parallel to the wind direction. कौन से स्टेटमेंट सही है, कौन से नहीं है? पैरेलल नहीं होते वो विंड डायरेक्शन को. सप्लाई ऑफ सैंड अबंडेंट होगा या कम होगा? अबंडेंट है. दैट इज क्लियरली देयर. ओके, we say barkans appear parallel to the wind direction. I feel both statements should be said. Sorry, what? No, clearly not. Yeah, absolutely. अच्छा, लिमिटेड सप्लाई ऑफ सैंड में चल रहे हैं. माय बैड देन. ट्रांसफर्स के लिए क्लियरली अबंडेंट सप्लाई ऑफ सैंड चाहिए. Limited supply of sand mine. So we'll go with whatever they had said earlier, that barkans do not appear parallel to the wind direction because they're sitting in the middle of it, and barkans are also formed when the supply of sand is limited. Okay, when the supply of sand will be limited. Okay, ji. Let's go ahead. In mushroom rocks, the portion of a rock at medium height is eroded more, and the reason being the sand particles carried by wind at the medium height have high velocities. असर्शन सही है क्या कि मशरूम रॉक्स में जो पोर्शन मीडियम हाइट पे होता है वो ज्यादा इरोड हो जाता है? नहीं, ये मशरूम रॉक है. हाँ, ये बेस है, ये बेस है, ये मशरूम रॉक है ऐसे. ओके, तो मुझे बताइए कि ये इस लेवल पे सबसे ज्यादा इरोजन हो रहा है या इस लेवल पे, नीचे के लेवल पे सबसे ज्यादा इरोजन हो रहा है? नीचे। बीच वाले में क्यों हो रहा है? अच्छा, यू आर सेइंग वो राउंडेड ऑफ भी हो रहा है वहां पे? नहीं नहीं सर, ये अच्छा खासा पूरा रॉक था, उसका इतना सा ही स्टेम बचा है, तो सबसे ज्यादा इरोजन किस तरफ मिलता है? सबसे नीचे मिलेगा। क्लोजर टू द सर्फेस ऑफ द ग्राउंड इज वेयर यू विल फाइंड द मैक्सिमम इरोजन, ओके? तो वहां पे आपको सबसे ज्यादा इरोजन मिलेगा। एंड सैंड पार्टिकल्स कैरीड बाय द विंड एट मीडियम हाइट्स एट हाई वेलोसिटीज, नो। सबसे ज्यादा वेलोसिटी सैंड पार्टिकल्स की कहाँ होगी? सबसे नीचे, ओके? एक्चुअली फ्रिक्शन की वजह से इतना नीचे नहीं, थोड़ा सा ऊपर, लेकिन एग्जैक्टली मीडियम लेवल पे नहीं होना चाहिए इसको, ओके? हाँ, फास्ट सा नहीं कर सकते। ट्रांसपोर्टेशन ऑफ विंड का बताइए। Which of the following processes of which of the following are processes of transportation are used by the wind? Sorry, just one moment. हो गया। बोलिए, which are the various processes of transportation which are used by the wind? आपके पास सोल्यूशन, सॉल्टेशन, ट्रैक्शन, सस्पेंशन है। इसमें से क्या क्या विंड कैरी कर सकता है? विंड में कुछ डिसॉल्व हो सकता है क्या? कैन द सैंड पार्टिकल डिसॉल्व इन द विंड? कैन द मिनरल पार्टिकल? नो। करेक्ट। तो लेट्स रिमूव सोल्यूशन फ्रॉम द दिस, ओके? तो जहां कहीं सोल्यूशन मिलेगा वो नहीं हो सकता है। सस्पेंशन इज पॉसिबल। यस, पार्टिकल्स में रिमेन सस्पेंडेड इन द विंड ना। सॉल्टेशन पॉसिबल होगा। सॉल्टेशन मीनिंग द पार्टिकल्स विल जंप फ्रॉम प्लेस टू प्लेस, क्या वो विंड में पॉसिबल होगा? नहीं होगा। हो सकता है ना, बिल्कुल हो सकता है। एंड ट्रैक्शन, ट्रैक्शन से जाएगा। ट्रैक्शन से जाएगा ना, क्यों नहीं जाएगा? ओ, ट्रैक्शन माने बीइंग पुल्ड अलोंग द बेस। ट्रैक्शन माने द हेवियर पार्टिकल्स आर बीइंग पुल्ड अलोंग द बेस। ए, व्हाट इज रॉन्ग विद यू पीपल? क्या चल रहा है आपका? जिसके लिए हंसना जरूरी होता है? अच्छा, ठीक है, बताइए क्या क्या कर सकते हैं? सस्पेंशन होगा, दे कैन बी सस्पेंडेड। सस्पेंडेड माने हवा में तैर रहे होंगे वो, ओके? दे कैन फ्लोट इन द एयर, राइट? सस्पेंडेड मीनिंग बीइंग फ्लोटिंग इन द एयर। सो दे कैन ये मुझको गिफ्ट मिल रहा है क्या? ओके, थैंक यू। ये मैंने किसको देना होता है? अच्छा। अरे कोई आता है ना कलेक्ट करने? मैंने इससे पहले कभी किस क्लास का अटेंडेंस रख के नीचे नहीं दिया है। अच्छा, आप टीचर को दे देते हैं? अच्छा, मे बी बिकॉज यू आर यंगर किड्स ना, 11th स्टैंडर्ड, इसलिए शायद आपके लिए रूल्स अलग होंगे। एनीवे, सस्पेंशन मीनिंग वो पार्टिकल्स विंड में फ्लोट करते हैं तो दे कैन बी सस्पेंडेड। सॉल्टेशन माने ना वो पार्टिकल्स, सपोज से दिस इज द बेस, ओके? ये बेस होगा, तो ये पार्टिकल यहाँ से यहाँ जाएगा। यू नो, इट विल, सॉल्टेशन मीनिंग ऐसा थोड़ा डांसिंग जैसा मूवमेंट। इट विल जंप एंड गो, ओके? दैट इज व्हाट यू आर सेइंग। देन द पार्टिकल विल अगेन जंप एंड गो ओवर हियर। Particle will again jump and go over here, okay? This movement is possible in the wind. Yeah, it is possible. And traction meaning, if this is the surface, they will be dragged along the surface. The larger particles will be dragged along the surface. Even that movement is possible ना? हाँ, तीनों। हाँ, ऐसे विंड की वजह से उनको थोड़ा थोड़ा ऐसे ड्रैग करके पॉसिबल होता है। ये पानी में भी होता है। दिस कैन हैपन इन द वाटर ऑल्सो, इन रनिंग वाटर, रिवर्स में, रिवर बेड्स के अलावा दिस मूवमेंट कैन हैपन। कौन सी नदी? गंगा नदी हर नदी में होगा, लेकिन अच्छा, ये सिक्स स्टेटमेंट। यारदांग्स जो है, इट इज अ रिमेनिंग पार्ट ऑफ अ रिज where softer rocks have been eroded by the wind. Okay. Mushroom rocks are formed when low rising rocks lie in the path of the wind. लो राइजिंग नहीं होते ना, हाई राइज रॉक्स नहीं होते। हाई राइज होते तो मेसाज या बुट्स बन जाते हैं, राइट? लो राइज रॉक्स है, इसलिए मशरूम रॉक्स, इफ दे लाई इन द, रेजिस्टेंट रॉक्स होते हैं दैट लाई इन द पाथ ऑफ द विंड, दैट इज ओके। यारदंग का बताइए, इज यारदंग अ रिमेनिंग पार्ट ऑफ द रिज वेयर सॉफ्टर रॉक्स आर इरोडेड बाय द विंड? यारदंग का सॉफ्टर रॉक कहाँ होता है? यारदंग कैसे दिखता है? यारदंग आर रोज ऑफ दोज रिजेस, राइट? हाँ, सो यू आर सेइंग कि उसका जो उसके बाजू में जो सॉफ्टर रॉक था दैट इज बीइंग इरोडेड एंड बीच का वो एक रिज रह गया है. So we are saying that this should be correct. So we are saying only statement one is correct. Why re baba? यारदान का स्टेटमेंट करेक्ट है. ये कैसा टेस्ट सेट किया है मैंने? मशरूम रॉक्स आर फॉर्म्ड व्हेन low rising rocks lie in the path of the wind. No, I'm trying to understand where I've took these questions from. Yes, that is correct. That is absolutely correct. They are low rising rocks. No, the I have marked it incorrectly. Both statements should ideally be wrong. Okay, the answer should be this. Both statements are correct. केव्स नहीं कर सकते अभी, कास्ट टोपोग्राफी नहीं कर सकते, बोरा केव्स नहीं कर सकते. कतारा डिप्रेशन. कतारा डिप्रेशन और डिप्लेशन हॉलो लाइज इन विच ऑफ द फॉलोइंग कंट्रीज? इजिप्ट. इजिप्ट में लाई करता है. ओके. State which of these are true or false. Lowest plains are formed in the deserts by sand particles carried in rivers. Very correct. False ही है वो, क्योंकि lowest plains are usually formed by the depositional feature of wind. Okay, मतलब they are a depositional feature of the wind. तो वो rivers तो नहीं carry कर रहे sand particles को. Okay. Yardangs are formed in areas where hard and soft rocks are found alternately arranged. Yes. Yardangs are erosional features formed by wind. Yardangs erosional है या depositional है? Erosional features है. Okay. Are yardangs formed in areas जहाँ hard and soft rocks are found alternately arranged? Yes. दोनों yardangs and zuigen में hard and soft rocks alternately arranged होते हैं. Except in case of yardangs, वो rocks vertically arranged है alternately, whereas in case of zuigens वो horizontally arranged होते हैं. Okay. I will send the four of you out the next time I see you talking. Is that clear? Okay. So we are going with both statements are correct over here. Okay, both statements are correct. Which of the following is a necessary condition for wind to become effective? Low wind velocity, vast and arid regions, abundance of trees and vegetation, absence of loose particles at the surface to aid deposition of sand. Absence of loose particles. विंड को इफेक्टिव होने के लिए लूज पार्टिकल्स अगर होंगे नहीं तो विंड क्या कैरी करेगा अपने साथ? वो तो ऐसे बड़े बड़े पत्थरों को लेके नहीं जा सकता है. उसको तो लूज पार्टिकल्स चाहिए, तो उसको अनकंसोलिडेटेड मटेरियल चाहिए चाहिए. विंड को इफ विंड इरोजन और डेपोजिशन हैज टू वर्क, unconsolidated material is a necessity. Okay, unattached unconsolidated material जो होता है loose particles of sand, that is a necessity. abundance of trees and vegetation चलेगा क्या? नहीं, because they act as obstructions. आपको बार बार अगर कोई trees and vegetation बीच में मिला तो wind ऐसे unchecked कैसे flow करेगा? तो clearly that won't work. Okay, low wind velocity नहीं, what will it deposit, what will it possibly erode? wind का जो erosion and deposition का सबसे बड़ा ये होता है feature होता है, that is the speed of the wind. If the wind is not going with enough speed, what kind of momentum will it bring to bring about all the erosion on the surface? तो बहुत कम आएगा ना, वो नहीं हो सकता है. Vast and arid regions, that is one important necessary condition for the wind to become effective. For the wind to be really effective, you need a vast and arid region, featureless mostly, just with a few resistant rocks, and then the wind will work best. Okay, so vast and arid regions, this should be the answer. Vast and arid regions. All right. Past है, ये है. Choose the 15th statement. Choose the correct statement. Crescent shaped dunes are also called as सेफ्स. Crescent shaped dunes को सेफ्स बुलाएंगे. क्रेसेंट माने मून का जो शेप होता है ना, वैसे वाला. हाँ, हो वैसे वाला, उसको उसको सेफ्स बुलाएंगे क्या? क्रेसेंट शेप मोस्टली बार्कन्स होते हैं, वो तो ऐसे हुक्स जैसे होते हैं, राइट? डिफ्लेशन हॉलोज आर फॉर्म्ड बाय द डिपोजिशन ऑफ ग्राउंड वाटर इन डेजर्ट. आर डिफ्लेशन हॉलोज फॉर्म लाइक दैट क्योंकि पानी डिपॉजिट हो रहा है डेजर्ट में? नहीं, पानी नहीं डिपॉजिट हो रहा है. विंड इज रिमूविंग ऑल द सैंड फ्रॉम अ सर्टेन प्लेस लीडिंग टू अ फॉर्मेशन ऑफ अ हॉलो. ओके, तो ये स्टेटमेंट भी सही नहीं हो सकता है. finest sand particles get deposited in the shape of hills called as dunes. Pretty close. Okay, that is pretty close. ना, जितने fine sand particles होते हैं, they are deposited in the shape of small hills. छोटे छोटे hills के shape में deposit हो रहे हैं, जिसको हम dunes बुलाते हैं. This is pretty close. Let's see if there are other statements that sound more true. The Barcan slope that faces the wind is gentle, whereas the opposite slope is steep. मतलब windward slope gentle है and leeward slope steep है. क्या ये सही है? ये statement बिल्कुल सही है. Okay. है ना, विंडवर्ड स्लोप जेंटल होता है, ऑपोजिट स्लोप स्टीप होता है, तो ये वाला स्टेटमेंट एकदम सही है। तो व्हाट इज रॉन्ग विद द अबव स्टेटमेंट, वो शेप हिल्स के शेप में नहीं है, वो क्रेसेंट शेप में है। ओके, that can be the one problem with it. So if anything sounds even mildly correct, check the other statements to see if something else sounds more correct. Okay, वो check कर लेते हैं। All right. Karst topography नहीं, karst नहीं, barkens are a characteristic feature of the Thar desert. क्या ये सही है? Yes, yes, most certainly yes. Barkens are a very characteristic feature of the Thar. Longitudinal dunes are found in large numbers in Rub al Khali desert in Iraq. The problem is not रूबल खली में मिलते हैं, इट इज फेमसली कॉल्ड एज द एम्प्टी क्वार्टर्स, क्योंकि वहां पर कुछ नहीं है। बट वो जो है वो इराक में नहीं लाई करता है, इट लाइज इन सऊदी अरेबिया, सऊदी में लाई करता है वो। ओके, तो इराक इज द प्रॉब्लम, इराक में नहीं लाई कर रहा है वो डेजर्ट। ओके, ठीक है। सो लॉन्जिट्यूडनल ड्यून्स वहां मिलते हैं, लेकिन इराक में नहीं होंगे वो। हाँ, लेकिन उसको रूबल खली बुलाते हैं क्या? आई एम जस्ट लेट्स वेरीफाई वन सेकेंड। यस, एम्प्टी क्वार्टर डेजर्ट इन एशिया मत बोल यार, कंट्री का नाम दे। सऊदी अरेबिया, ओमान, यूएई एंड यमन। बट सऊदी अरेबिया वाला पार्ट ज्यादा बड़ा है। हाश हाइपर, सी ना दिख रहा है यहाँ पे, राइट? लॉन्जिट्यूडनल ड्यून्स, यू कैन मेक आउट, राइट? द ड्यून्स आर लॉन्जिट्यूडनल इन नेचर। ये वाला पिक्चर देखिए ना, क्लियरली लॉन्जिट्यूडनल ड्यून्स दिखाई दे रहे हैं। हाँ? नहीं, ऐसे पतले पतले लाइंस की तरह दिखते हैं वो, दे लुक लाइक लिटिल लाइंस, एक्सेप्ट थोड़े से रिजेस होते हैं, दे रेज्ड लाइंस होते हैं, दैरो रेज्ड लाइंस की तरह दिखाई देते हैं। ओके, इस गर्मी में इतनी परेशानी हो रही है, यहाँ पे नॉर्मल ड्यून्स दिखाई दे रहे हैं मुझको। नहीं, वहां पे भी अंदर थोड़ा सा है, लॉन्जिट्यूडनल ड्यून्स ही है वहां पे मोस्टली। ठीक है, ओमान में भी है, ओमान यमन में भी है। मस्कट, हाँ। मस्कट कितना सैंडी है ये पता नहीं है मुझको। वी आर गोइंग विद स्टेटमेंट वन इज करेक्ट। क्या है? पथरीला है ना, रॉकी है वो डेजर्ट। ठीक है। Ventifacts. Ventifacts are formed by the process of solution, abrasion, distillation और plucking. Ventifacts वो पत्थर नहीं होते जो ऐसे साइड से एकदम प्लेन फेसेस होते हैं एंड एजेस होते हैं, उसको उसको हम वेंटिफैक्ट बुलाते थे। वी वर सेइंग राउंडेड पेबल्स नहीं मिलेंगे, वो जितने भी राउंडेड पेबल्स होते हैं उसके एकदम फ्लैट फेसेस हो जाते हैं एंड शार्प एजेस मिल जाते हैं उसको, राइट? तो वो वेंटिफैक्ट्स है। तो अब ये कौन से प्रोसेस से बनते हैं? सोल्यूशन के प्रोसेस से तो नहीं बन सकते। हाँ, अब्रेजन है जिसमें आपको स्क्रैचिंग पॉलिशिंग वाला इफेक्ट मिलेगा। हाँ, डिफ्लेशन से तो नहीं हो रहा है क्योंकि वहां से कुछ निकल नहीं रहा है। एंड प्लकिंग भी नहीं है, प्लकिंग ग्लेशियर्स का प्रोसेस है, ग्लेशियर कहीं से नीचे आता है, वो जो टूटे फूटे ये होते हैं, सॉरी बैक टू इंग्लिश सर। ओके, so when the glacier comes down a mountain, what happens, or a rock, whatever pieces of broken jagged rock you find, the glacier simply picks them out, okay, pulls them out and goes away with it. That is the process of plucking. Okay, so once again, that cannot be the process over here, it has to be abrasion, right? The process has to be abrasion. One second. All four of you please leave. See, yeah, honest people, they thought they were also rocking, so they also have to leave. Black shirt, striped blue shirt, something in cream, and I don't know what you are wearing. I rarely see you. Maroon shirt. Now you know who you are. Please leave the classroom. मशरूम रॉक्स के ऊपर क्वेश्चन है अगेन। मशरूम रॉक्स जो होते हैं, they are mainly formed due to abrasion by sand particles carried in the wind, and the maximum impact of abrasion is at the top of the rock, giving rise to its characteristic shape. ओके, वो पूछ रहे हैं कि मशरूम रॉक्स जो होते हैं, दे आर मेनली फॉर्म ड्यू टू अब्रेजन, घिसने वाला इफेक्ट जो आएगा ना, सैंड पेपर वाला इफेक्ट, उसकी वजह से हो रहा है। कैरीड इन द विंड, ओके, द सैंड पार्टिकल्स आर कैरीड इन द विंड, दिस इज ट्रू, अब्रेजन की वजह से ही हो रहा है वो कोई डिफ्लेशन नहीं है, इट इज नॉट ब्लोइंग स्टफ आउट फ्रॉम प्लेसेस, इट इज व्हाट इट इज डूइंग इज द पार्टिकल्स कैरीड बाय द सैंड go and collide and scratch against the surface of the rock, and because of that that rock is being abrated, and because of that the particular erosion is happening. Yeah, Abhi, we are discussing where the maximum impact of the erosion is happening. You're saying that the maximum impact of the abrasion is at the top of the rock, giving rise to its characteristic shape. No, the maximum abrasion happens below. The erosion, maximum erosion happens closer to the surface of the earth, or closer to the surface of the ground. And so clearly this second statement cannot be wrong. We'll only go with the first statement. Okay, only the first statement is correct. Option A. एक मिनट. हाँ, ये मैंने खुद बनाए थे यार, टेस्ट देनी पड़ती है ना आप लोगों को, इसलिए. तो हाँ जी. हाँ, लेकिन ये तो गलत है ना. एक मिनट. कॉन्टिनेंटल प्लेट चाहिए, फोटोपैक्सी नहीं चाहिए मुझको, मोनालोआ नहीं चाहिए. अरे दिस इज द रॉन्ग पेपर. आई डोंट वांट दिस पेपर. नहीं नहीं, दिस इज देयर. रिवर्स ग्लेशियर्स. यू हैव नॉट डन ऑल दिस, सो आपको ये पूछने का सवाल नहीं पैदा होता है. अच्छा, ये मैंने यहीं से डाला है, ठीक है, forget it. Let's try looking at few questions from here. What did we do? We did Aeolian topography, right? So now this is rivers, glaciers. You have not done all these, so I can't ask you. ये वाला बताइए. Crescent shaped sand dunes are called as combes, barkans, foliae or cells. Barkans. Option B, barkans. Okay, absolutely correct. Hmm. Huh. Seventh question. Limon and Adobe are alternative names for playa, cirques, deltas or loess. Deltas को बुलाएंगे limon and Adobe. Loess को बुलाएंगे. Very correct. Loess को बुलाएंगे. Adobe limon is something that you call that in limon line के जैसा limon. Hence उसको यूरोप में limon बुलाते हैं. And Adobe is a name for it in California, I think. थोड़ा सा वेस्टर्न यूएसए में बुलाते हैं उसको Adobe. Okay. डेल्टा, हाँ, पानी का रिवर जब फाइनली व्हेन द रिवर गोज एंड मीट्स द सी, तो यूजुअली इफ द लेवल ऑफ द बेस लेवल ऑफ द रिवर वेयर द रिवर इज मैक्सिमम इरोडेड, इफ दैट बेस लेवल ऑफ द रिवर lies above the surface of the sea, then deltas are formed and the coasts have to be a little shallow. Okay, so then clearly deltas can be formed over there. Otherwise फिर तो वहां पे estuaries बनते हैं, कोस्टल एरियाज में मिलते हैं डेल्टास. तो गंगा ब्रह्मपुत्र का डेल्टा इज वेरी फेमस अपने यहाँ पे. गोदावरी कृष्णा के भी डेल्टास मिलेंगे अपने को, है ना. महानदी, गोदावरी कृष्णा सबके डेल्टास है हमारे पास. महानदी का छोटा सा बनता है ना, छोटा सा बनता है, बहुत बड़ा नहीं है. गोदावरी कृष्णा के बड़े हैं एंड गंगा का बहुत बड़ा है, दुनिया का सबसे बड़ा है. तो वी आर लेटिंग इट गो. सुंदरबंस, या सुंदरबंस वाला एरिया. सुंदरबंस के इतने ब्यूटीफुल पिक्चर्स मिलते हैं आपको. एक मिनट. हाँ, आई एम जस्ट लुकिंग फॉर मोर. मोरेन्स नहीं पूछ सकते यार आप मुझको. मैंग्रोव्स है वहां पे, यस. स्टैलेक्टाइट सब तक किया नहीं है आपने. पास्ट लैंडस्केप का नहीं कर सकते, डेल्टास को नहीं कर सकते. कोर्स ने. इंसलबर्ग क्या है ये बता सकते हैं आप मुझको, व्हाट एन इंसलबर्ग इज? इंसलबर्ग is the flat rocky floor at the foot of the mountain in a glaciated landscape, or the formation inside a limestone cave, or a rift valley lying between two buttes, or an isolated resistant hill that rises above a featureless plain. What is an Inselberg? इंसलबर्ग क्या होता है? हाँ, एक पत्थर जैसा, हाँ, एक रेजिस्टेंट रॉक है जो पीछे रह गया है, रेसिडुअल रॉक है. ओके, तो इट विल हैव टू बी एन आइसोलेटेड रेजिस्टेंट हिल that rises above a featureless plain. आजू बाजू का पूरा प्लेन फीचरलेस होता है ना, उसको उसको इंसलबर्ग बुलाएंगे. ओके. लाइमस्टोन में नहीं नेसेसरली मिलेगा आपको. अच्छा. अच्छा, वो बाकी का क्या था वो? ये दुनिया का मेरा फेवरेट इंसलबर्ग है, ऑस्ट्रेलिया में. उलुरु बुलाते हैं इसको. ओके, दिस इज कॉल्ड एज द उलुरु, और माउंट एयर्स बुलाते थे पहले. नाउ इट इज करंटली कॉल्ड एज उलुरु. ओके, ये वहाँ के जो नेटिव ट्राइब्स है, एबोरिजिनल्स, उनके लिए बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट स्ट्रक्चर है. वो उसको सेक्रेड मानते हैं रिलीजियस हिसाब से, उनके लिए सेक्रेड स्ट्रक्चर है. पहले यहाँ पे गवर्नमेंट का कंट्रोल हुआ करता था, तो क्लियरली वो टूरिज्म का साइट वगैरह, फेमस साइट है ना, तो टूरिज्म के लिए वगैरह मान सकते थे इसको. लेकिन अभी क्लियरली दे हैव बीन, द लॉज एंड लेजिस्लेशंस हैव बीन चेंज्ड, एंड अभी ये रेस्ट्रिक्टेड एरिया है, तो टूरिस्ट नहीं विजिट कर सकते. आप दूर से पिक्चर्स ले सकते हो, एंड दैट इज दैट. ओके, यू कैन क्लाइम द माउंटेन बिकॉज they considered it very rude. The aboriginals considered it very rude to climb the mountains. पैर नहीं लगा सकते इस जगह को. That's the general idea. Okay, Uluru. And this is an Inselberg. दिख रहा है आजू बाजू कुछ भी फीचर्स दिखाई दे रहे हैं? नहीं, पूरा फ्लैट लैंड है, राइट. So this is what essentially an Inselberg looks like, and this is a arid region. तो इसको Inselberg बुलाएंगे. अगर यही ह्यूमिड या टेम्परेट रीजन होता तो इसको मोनाडनॉक बुलाते. ओके, ठीक है. कोस्टल रीजन में ऐसा मिलना, तो वही वही अगर ह्यूमिड क्लाइमेट होगा तो मोनाडनॉक, अगर एरिड क्लाइमेट होगा तो, लेकिन कोस्टल एरियाज में एरिड क्लाइमेट कहाँ से मिलेगा? तो अगर कोस्टल एरिया में भी आपको ऐसा कुछ मिल जाए पानी के पास भी, तो भी आप उसको मोनाडनॉक ही बुलाएंगे। अंजुना बीच में यहाँ पे ऐसे इंसलबर्ग्स नहीं बुला सकते, वो ना द कोस्ट इटसेल्फ इज वेरी रॉकी, तो यू कांट फाइंड रेसिडुअल हिल्स ओवर देयर, लेकिन कोस्ट इटसेल्फ इज वेरी रॉकी। तो पथरीला है वो सब कुछ, इट्स वेरी स्टोनी एंड रॉकी, बट दैट इज दैट, नॉट यू रे। मेडागास्कर में ये दिखता है? क्या बात कर रहे हो आप? मेडागास्कर में आपको इंसलबर्ग्स दिखते हैं? मोनाड नॉक्स? बेटा, आई रियली नीड टू चेक। I have never heard of monadnocks in Madagascar, but if you are showing me, then I'll to be more than happy to see what kind of monadnocks you find there. है है Madagascar में इंसलबर्ग्स एंड monadnocks दोनों है। However, I know never known of this because I always thought monad it is a very you know biological diversity के लिए famous है Madagascar, तो I had never imagined this kind of part over there. हाँ, मॉरिशस में है। दे काफी अच्छे हैं, नोटेबल है, so you do find a huge one. Clearly we cannot pronounce the names, but you do have. Thank you. I really never knew this. See, that's why I love sitting with you people, because I keep learning new things. See, you find monadnocks and inselbergs in Madagascar also, okay, despite all that. You know na wo नहीं, that is Galapagos Islands, not Madagascar. Madagascar में कुछ मिलता है जो सिर्फ वहां मिलता है। डोडो, डोडो के रिमेन्स है अभी वहां पे। ओके, I, I don't know. I'm not very sure about that part. I'm thinking of something else. I know Komodo dragons are found somewhere in Southeast Asia. So what is that one thing or reptile or creature or bird that you find only in Madagascar? There is one of those. मैं याद करने की कोशिश कर रही हूँ कि वो क्या है। इरोजनल लैंडफॉर्म आपने ये किया नहीं है? हाँ जी, रोश मोटरनी। इधर यार, चलो we'll go to the next part. Okay, we are going to look at caste topography. Caste मतलब we are saying कि यूगोस्लाविया जहां हुआ करता था ना, we are in this part of the world now. ये, हाँ, हम इस रीजन की बात कर रहे हैं, दिस रीजन, ओके, वेयर erstwhile यूगोस्लाविया यूज्ड टू बी, ओके। तो वी आर सेइंग कि जहां पर पुराने जमाने में यूगोस्लाविया हुआ करता था, वहां पर एक रीजन था कास्ट नाम का, ओके। अब उस रीजन की स्पेशलिटी ये थी कि उसका जो पूरा बेडरॉक था दैट वाज लाइमस्टोन और चॉक, ओके। तो वहां पर जब वाटर, सरफेस वाटर, जो लाइमस्टोन की खासियत क्या है कि इट इज वेरी वेल जॉइंटेड, ओके, लाइमस्टोन इज वेरी वेल जॉइंटेड। So what happens is whatever surface water you get, whatever rivers or surface drainage you get, it tries to go down from the joints, okay, it will go down deep inside the rock from those joints, and that is why most of the surface water will disappear. तो आपको उस लैंडस्केप पे ऊपर से नदियां वगैरह, स्ट्रीम्स वगैरह नहीं दिखाई देते, ओके, लैक ऑफ सरफेस ड्रेनेज होता है मोस्टली। whatever water is available in the form of ground water, okay. So groundwater की वजह से whatever, because of the presence of groundwater, whatever landforms are formed, whether erosional or depositional, are called as karst topography, okay, because of this region in Purani, wherever Yugoslavia used to be earlier, it doesn't exist as a country anymore, but where it used to be there earlier, and from there that region, that region over there used to be called karst. So in general, that type of topography is called as karst topography, okay. साइबेरिया के बाजू में था यूगोस्लाविया का पोजीशन, वेट अ मिनट। हाँ, वही होना चाहिए क्योंकि वो स्लाविक है ना, तो वी आर लुकिंग फॉर दैट ओनली। हाँ, बल्गेरिया, रोमानिया, हंगेरी, हंगरी, ऑस्ट्रिया, अल्बेनिया, ग्रीस, बराबर बोला था, ये वाला एड्रियाटिक के बराबर साइड वाला, ये वाला पार्ट, ये वाला, दिस रीजन, दिस यूज्ड टू बी यूगोस्लाविया फर्स्ट, ओके, बराबर एड्रियाटिक के साइड वाला, वी आर सेइंग दैट रीजन। हाँ, USSR का part. It used to be a part of the USSR. Okay. So now we are looking at past topography in this sense. We are saying it's a very distinct topography formed by the action of groundwater on soluble rocks like limestone and chalk. Okay. This is the very basic feature that the rock has to be, below the surface. It has to be limestone and chalk. And then the water on the surface will go down through that limestone and chalk because it is well jointed, and it will travel as groundwater. And whatever erosional or depositional forms, landforms it forms by groundwater are the karst topography. Okay. The name is derived from karst district of Yugoslavia. Please remember the very basic feature is that there is a general absence of surface drainage. Okay. You will find that the surface drainage is very less over here. Okay, the forces acting over here are erosion that is happening by solution. पानी है ना, ग्राउंड वाटर की बात करें. ओए हीरो, बात ना कीजिए. So erosion is happening due to solution basically. Okay, it is the solution that is causing the erosion to happen. The normal idea is that the carbon dioxide from the air, okay, mixes with the water, forms weak carbonic acid. Okay, then these rock like limestone and chalk जो होते हैं, they are dissolved within this carbonic acid, and they are removed from the rock. Okay, that is what is happening. So this is solution. This is the process of solution. And deposition जो होता है, it happens like all this, dissolved calcium carbonate water, the water which has dissolved calcium carbonate on it, it is carried forward. Okay, then it evaporates. Once the water evaporates, what is left behind? The precipitate of calcium carbonate. Okay, and then this precipitate of calcium carbonate is essentially going to form all the depositional landforms. There are only 3 depositional landforms that we are worried about: stalactites, stalagmites, and pillars. Okay, so this is going to be formed in this process. Okay. Yeah. हम्पी में केव्स नहीं है. आपको वो थोड़े से मेघालय की तरफ बहुत अच्छे केव्स मिलते हैं अपने यहाँ पे. लाइमस्टोन का मेजर फॉर्मेशंस, लाइमस्टोन का सप्लाई. कर्नाटका रीजन से आप लाइमस्टोन ला रहे हो. अच्छा, पुराने जमाने का आर्किटेक्चर यूर सेइंग, वो वहां पे लाइमस्टोन में ज्यादा था. हम्पी में लाइमस्टोन का आर्किटेक्चर था. मुझे ज्यादा स्टोन का लग रहा है, लेकिन लाइमस्टोन है वहां पे. चेक हम्पी का स्टोन कौन सा है. चलो यार, गुड, विल चेक आउट हम्पी का स्टोन कौन सा है. स्टे ऑप्शंस नहीं चाहिए मुझको. स्टोन चैरियट मत दो यार. विच स्टोन इज यूज्ड इन हम्पी. ग्रेनाइट होना चाहिए प्राइमरीली. हाँ, ग्रेनाइट है. यू आर क्लोजपेट के पास है ना, तो वो क्लोजपेट ग्रेनाइट होना चाहिए. धारवाड़, धारवाड़. विजयनगर एम्पायर. This is on my bucket list, man. Hampi one day. Anyways, here we are. Okay. किस पे? तुंगभद्रा नदी के किनारे पे. उन्होंने prospered because of that, ना? They prospered a lot because of that. They had that one. There were 2 brothers, no? Harihar and Bukka, right? They were those 2 brothers who started it. And they came here. They found that guru of theirs, Vidyaranya, and then together with his blessing and his guidance, they went ahead and yeah. Harihar became the first one, and then Bukka became the second one. And then Krishnadev Raya, KDR, is the most iconic king from that empire. Tenali Raman. Tenali Raman was called Tenali Raman? No, he has a different name, doesn't he? Did Tenali Raman have the same name? He's referred to by, for example, Birbal is not really, he's called also by a very different name. I just remember that NCRT books mentioned that when Birbal died, and he was a warrior, right? I mean, he led this somewhere near Afghanistan. He was leading a campaign somewhere over there. He passed away in that battle, and Akbar was really shocked by his death because he was a very good lifelong companion for Akbar, right? He was a friend and a companion and all, and advisor also, yes. Also because Birbal never really took up all those ideas that Akbar said, right? And whatever ideas Akbar proposed, Birbal also had his own mind of it. He did not just blindly follow the king everywhere. Ah, Dinelai, right? Dinelai. No, was he part of that? He was not part of that. Birbal was the only person who was part of that. Okay. That would make sense actually, that all religions are one and we can just follow everything there. Anyways, back to our class topography. We are saying that the erosion happens because of solution. The process of solution is important for erosion to happen, and the deposition will happen because the water evaporates, and once the water evaporates, what is left behind is the precipitate of calcium carbonate, okay, the one that was already dissolved. The various erosional landforms here are clints and grikes, limestone pavements, swallow or sinkholes, dolines, ovalas, polier, underground caves. Okay, we're looking at all these features. The depositional landforms are those formed in the caves, paleothems, stalactites, stalagmites, and pillars. Okay, these are the depositional landforms. Let's start one by one. Okay, once again, the very first basic thing about limestones is that they are very well jointed in nature. Okay, limestones are very well jointed. So clearly, what happens is, say for example, if this is the limestone. Okay, so now this has these joints everywhere. Okay, now, what happens when the surface water flows over these joints? This surface water is going to start trickling down over here. It is going to start going down these joints, okay? And because of the process of solution, these joints are going to widen. They're going to become bigger, okay? That is a very small kid to have in the class. No, that is a really small kid to have in the class. This is fifth standard, fourth standard kids maybe. Yes. नहीं ये तो full size kid है हाँ तो बॉयज का क्या है वो तो 20 तक ग्रो करते हैं ना 20-21 तक यू कैन हैव दैट स्पॉट ऑफ ग्रोथ राइट 25 तक ग्रो कर सकते हैं यार कुछ भी क्या बात कर रहे हैं आप 22 is the limit until which you can grow. Girls will stop growing a little earlier. I think 18 is the limit for the girls. I never shot up beyond 18. I just shot up when I was 16 and that is that. After that, my height didn't increase. You guys can still grow. So good for you. Okay. ठीक है. So once again, back to limestones. We are saying limestones are well jointed. Okay. मेरा लेक्चर जब तक मैं बात करूंगी तब तक 5 बजे तक I've been told 5 बजे तक. If you wish to leave, you can leave. I am basically teaching for those two who are not really paying attention to me today, but those two. You also, but they have exams coming up in September, na? So they have an attempt for September. So I'm teaching for them. Okay. So we are discussing limestones which are jointed. We are saying that this surface water, the one that is flowing on the limestone, is going to go beneath, it is going to go within these joints. Okay, it's going to travel within these joints and travel through the limestone. Okay, while it is there in the joints, what happens is by the process of solution, it will try to take away the limestone, it will try to eat up the limestone, and the gaps become bigger. Those joints will become bigger, bigger, bigger in nature. Okay, they will become bigger gaps. And then this is the way the solution is the only process for erosion over here. Okay, so we are saying the rainwater or surface water is going to go through these gaps or through these joints to the underlying rock, and these cracks and joints are going to widen progressively. Okay, they keep on widening, they keep on becoming bigger. So ultimately, instead of a straight a straight rock, what you get is you get this blocks, gaps, blocks, gaps, blocks, gaps. Samjha? This is the kind of structure you will get. Okay, now these blocks get called as clints. Okay, the blocks are called as clints, and these gaps are called as grikes. Okay, the gaps get called as grikes, the blocks get called as clints. Okay, clints and grikes. This structure is called as clints and grikes, and the resulting structure that is formed, the limestone pavement that we call, get called as lapis. Yeah, usko lapis bulate hain. Okay, clints माने blocks होते हैं. See, clints are the blocks. Okay, clints are the blocks. Grikes are the gaps within them, the joints that have widened into gaps. Okay. हाँ, I'm saying हाँ, rocks के बीच में gaps हो जाते हैं, बड़े-बड़े gaps हो जाते हैं. Instead of a single solid rock, what you get is pieces of rocks. Okay, pieces of blocks which are separated by gaps. So the blocks are called as clints and the gaps are called as grikes. Okay, okay. And this is you can also see this the scars are the steep exposed surfaces of the limestone. Okay, the ones that are not, the ones that are vertical, that look like a proper cliff, those will be called as scars. Okay, ठीक है. And the lapis का, ये ओए हेलो क्या चल रहा है आपका? Okay, I need to find lapis now. Here, wait a minute. I'm going to go to places and जो जरूरी नहीं है वो सब निकाल देंगे. हाँ, see these are lapis. This is how lapis are formed. दिख रहा है आपको? You can clearly see ये वाले these will be called as the clints. This will be called as the clint, and this portion, the gap here, will be called as the gripe. Okay, these are very difficult to cross, obviously, because पैर फंस गया तो क्या, right? So yeah, these can be really difficult to cross. You cannot survive this particular landscape. Okay, so people avoid this landscape while walking or traversing. They will take the other way around. All right. Another way of doing this is, wait a minute. Yeah, Yugoslavia, man. See how carefully this person is trying to go through here. See, the blocks will be called as clints and the gaps in between will be called as gripes. These are called as limestone pavements or lapis. Okay, these will be called as lapis or limestone pavements. Okay, fine. Okay, the next thing is, now what happens is, ये नीचे वाली केव में फंस गए थे वो, नीचे वाली केव में फंस गए थे वो. काफी दिन थे, 7-8 दिन थे, राइट? वो अंदर 15 दिन थे. ओके, ठीक है. Now we are saying, look at the surface of the land. Okay, this is the surface of the land. The rock beneath us is obviously going to be limestone or chalk. Okay, and only in this case can such a landscape be formed. So we are saying that usually what happens is there is a section of the ground that starts opening up. Okay, there is a whole kind of. We are saying that normally what happens is, if there is a marble, if there is a limestone over here, then the water starts going beneath the joint. Okay, from the joint the water starts going inward. Meanwhile, this region becomes bigger and bigger. The whole of the gap over there on the surface starts getting bigger and bigger. And you see this funnel-shaped hollow that is formed. That kind of a hollow is formed. Okay. So this funnel-shaped hollow is called as a sinkhole or a swallow hole. Okay. This is a very basic structure. You're saying that there is an opening in the ground. It's circular at the top. You can see it's circular. It has a funnel-shaped bottom. Okay. It can be anywhere between 1 to 600 meters. It can be small in size. It can be really large in size. Okay. And whatever surface water is available over here, whatever surface water was going, it will drain through this swallow hole or sinkhole downwards. Okay, it will go down into the limestone bed. Okay, and this will form a channel over here. Can you see this water? It will go eroding in places wherever the rock is more vulnerable. It will start eroding in these. Wait, people, stop talking. It will start eroding and go into places जहां पर ज़्यादा vulnerable लग रहा होगा, and it will make larger gaps or larger hollows. Okay, it will start to dissolve more and more of the rock, and then you can see this, instead of a channel above the ground where you will find the proper river flowing, you see a proper stream of water inside. Okay, you can see a proper stream of water here, and that is called as a blind valley. The reason is that this is once again like a river flowing in underneath the ground. Okay, underground river jaisa hota hai, except you cannot see it. So you call that as a blind valley. Okay, you can't see it, right? You can't see it from above the ground. You can only, it is only witnessed when you are below the ground. So that is called as a blind valley. Okay. And then they of course form these caves and stuff like that. Okay. Caves and underground caves and hollows vagare are formed. All right. Okay. Now about these swallow holes and sinkholes, let's try to see uske bade features kya hote. What are the bigger versions of it? So normally a swallow hole or a sinkhole is the normal. This is the normal version of a swallow hole. I'm doing away with lapis also. We don't need. See, this is a swallow hole or sinkhole. Now this is pretty huge. Okay, this is quite huge in nature. They can be smaller also. Okay, they can be ये साइज का, इतने से ये 4 टाइल्स जितने नजर आ रहे हैं ना, उतने टाइल्स का भी हो सकता है वो swallow hole or sinkhole. Okay, yeah, but sometimes they can get really bigger. They can be filled up with water, or they can be no water. Okay, sometimes there is no water also. For example, look at this. This is also something similar. You can see the limestone also very clearly, right over here. So you can see that there is a big hole over here. There is some water underneath, but clearly it can be deeper also. Okay, so the smaller version of it is called as a swallow hole or a sinkhole. When multiple swallow holes or sinkholes combine together and a large hole is formed, a bigger depression is formed, that is called as a doline. Okay, you call that as a doline. Okay, a doline. Single dolina, multiple dolines. Okay, so single dolina or multiple dolines, उसका length कभी कभी 0.5 kilometers, 2 kilometers इतना लंबा हो सकता है वो. Okay, sometimes multiple dolines can merge together and they form uvalas. Okay, see, then this kind of a depression is formed. इतना बड़ा. This is the surrounding part of it. This is the actual hole. Okay, this is the actual hole. The rest of this, all of this is the surrounding part of it. Okay, the one that was supposed to be standing as the walls. This is that part of it. This is very eroded. This is badly eroded. Okay, But this is what uvalas look like. Okay. And then multiple uvalas, when they coincide and they come together, that sometimes because of depression or faulting or something like that, they form huge valleys like structure called as poliae. Okay. Where is that? ओके हियर ओके पोलिए नाम का बड़ा सा स्ट्रक्चर बनाते हैं वो दैट कैन बी हंड्रेड्स ऑफ स्क्वायर्स ऑफ माइल्स ओके वेट गिव मी अ मिनट लेट मी सी व्हाट पोलिए इफ आई कैन फाइंड अ पिक्चर फॉर पोलिए गुड ये वाला ये ज्यादा बेटर है एक्चुअली ये भी बहुत अच्छा है ये अच्छा नजर आएगा ये अच्छा नजर आएगा आपको यू कैन सी दिस ना कैन यू सी वो गड्ढा है नीचे यू कैन सी दिस गड्ढा राइट ये जो गड्ढा बना है वो दिख रहा है ना आपको देयर इज अ प्रॉपर like it's a proper depression and you can see this huge sea, you know, this one surrounding it, the valley kind of a thing that is surrounding it. Okay, so this huge structure is called as a foliar. Then you call that as a foliar. Okay, but this is not just because swallow holes have joined and formed a dolina, or a dolinas have joined and formed uvalas, and uvalas have joined and become a foliar. Usually this is also because of tectonic activities like major faulting वगैरह ऐसे सब हुआ है, and because of that the structure is formed. Okay, so foliars are the largest of these structures. Okay, they look like huge dunes, you know, longitudinal dunes होते हैं इंडिया में, वैसा वाला दिखाई देता है वो. ओके ठीक है, and it's properly formed in limestone. All right, ठीक है. And then underground caves and caverns तो बनते हैं. We saw that already, that underground caves and caverns are formed. Okay, through underground passages we are saying that instead of a single blind valley over here, what does get formed is a proper hollow. Okay, this over here proper hollows are formed, and that is called as a cave. A cave looks somewhat like this. We are saying this is what a cave looks like. No? Underground caves look like this. I'll show you more things of underground caves. We can look more underground caves. पोलैंड का क्या है? हाँ, see, these are all caves. केव है, अंडमान आइलैंड्स है, क्या बात है, अंडमान आइलैंड्स का केव तो देख ही सकते हैं हम लोग खुशी से ना. दिस इज द काइंड ऑफ अ केव. ओके, एंड ये पानी है जो वहां पे नीचे जमा हो गया है, लेकिन हमको यहाँ पे ऐसा केव मिलता है, लाइमस्टोन केव्स है अपने. ओके, अंडमान इज आल्सो फेमस फॉर लाइमस्टोन केव्स, फॉरगॉट अबाउट दैट. ओके, सो दिस इज व्हाट अ केव लुक्स लाइक. ऑलराइट, ठीक है. Now we are looking at the depositional features that are formed within the cave. Okay, we are saying that the water which passes through the limestone beds, we remember what was happening. We were saying this was the entire limestone. Okay, the rock of limestone, these were the joints within it. The water kept passing through this point, and then finally it formed a cave over here. Okay, this is the cave formed over there. Now this is the roof of the cave, this is the floor of the cave. Okay, we call this the floor, this is the roof of the cave. Okay, now the water keeps dropping from the roof of the cave. Okay, all that water which has now dissolved a lot of calcium carbonate in it. Remember, this water is not going to roam by itself, right? The water is going to dissolve whatever carbon dioxide was in the air within itself, form a weak carbonic acid, and then it is going to travel with that, you know, dissolved calcium carbonate within itself. Okay, and while it is traveling over here, it is going to try to fall from the roof. Okay, it is going to try to drip from the roof. Okay, now once the process starts happening, that the water starts dripping from the roof, what happens is the water evaporates in the pipe, right? The water is going to evaporate, that is a very natural process. What is left behind is the precipitate in the water. Once the watery content is gone, what is left behind? The precipitate of calcium carbonate. Okay, so you are essentially saying that from the roof of this cave, these, yeah, stalactites are formed. Okay, these are icicles kind of a thing, you know, hanging from the roof. Okay, they are made up of calcium carbonate. You see, the base is broad and the end tapers. This end tapers, right? This end tapers. The base is broad. उत्तराखंड में होता है, हाँ होंगे, मेघालय में भी होते हैं. मेघालय के केव्स बहुत फेमस है. हाँ, इसलिए उत्तराखंड के मैंने देखे नहीं है, लेकिन मे बी एक हाथ दूसरा फेमस केव होगा. मेघालय के केव्स सच में फेमस है. उत्तराखंड में एक्चुअल आइस बनता होगा, कैल्शियम कार्बोनेट से नहीं बनते होंगे. उत्तराखंड इज अ कोल्ड प्लेस ना, तो उस इफ यू आर टॉकिंग समवेयर नियर वेयर वी गो फॉर पिलग्रिमेज एंड ऑल, देन वहां पे तो एक्चुअल आइस के बनते होंगे. ये तो कैल्शियम कार्बोनेट के हैं. दीज आर मेड फ्रॉम कैल्शियम कार्बोनेट. ये ऐसे व्हाइटिश कलर के कैल्शियम, ब्राउनिश थोड़े ग्रेइश कलर के कैल्शियम कार्बोनेट के बने होते हैं. दांतों में होता है. हाँ, कैल्शियम होता है, थोड़ा सा कार्बन भी होता है, तो दांतों में कैल्शियम कार्बोनेट. और कैल्शियम कार्बोनेट गन पाउडर में क्यों यूज करेंगे? गन पाउडर इज सॉल्ट पेटर, बिट ऑफ सल्फर, बिट ऑफ Yeah, you are confusing me, huh? Gunpowder composition. And why am I looking for gunpowder composition? Saltpeter, charcoal, sulfur. वो gunpowder है अपना. हाँ, charcoal भी यूज होता है. जियोलॉजिकल रॉक्स में होता है, एगशेल्स में, पर्ल्स में, कोरल रीफ्स में, शेलफिश एक्सोस्केलेटन्स. अरे हाँ, बोन्स बोन्स बोन्स. हड्डी हड्डी, अपना स्केलेटन उससे बना है. क्या लग रहा है? Agreed. I absolutely agree. That is true. That is true. Women do need to pay attention to their calcium levels after a certain age. After, yeah, middle age में ideally. वो तापसी पन्नू वाली. Okay. ठीक है. Nonetheless, but that's a good fact to remember. Anyways, have you gotten this? We are saying that these icicles will hang from the roof of the caves, okay? And these icicles are made up of calcium carbonate, okay? When the water evaporates, what is left behind is the precipitate of the calcium carbonate. Now, like, suppose say this was the cave, okay? If this was the cave and this is the roof, if the stalactites are hanging from the roof, then some water is also going to drip over here, okay? While this was being formed, some water is also going to drip over here. Now these will found small rounded things, okay? Small rounded bulges, but wherever the water drips, small rounded bulges are formed, okay? They will grow in size, but they will not be tapering like those. So these will rise from the ground up. These ones will rise from the ground up, and they are called as stalagmites, okay? Those are termed as stalagmites. The ones hanging from the roof are called as stalactites. Okay, clear? Sometimes what happens is these grow pretty long, these also grow pretty large, and these two join together in the form of a pillar, and that is simply called as a pillar. Okay, okay, is this good? We are saying that within the cave, in general, all three of these are referred to as speleothems, okay, because they are formations inside a cave. So generally what happens is the water starts dripping, the water which has dissolved carbon dioxide, dissolved calcium carbonate in it, starts dripping from the roof of the cave, and when it is dripping it will make those nice icicles, okay? And the same water is going to also drop below, okay? So when the water evaporates, what is left behind is the precipitate of calcium carbonate, and that is why those icicles over here. Can you see the speleothems? Would do good sense for you to check out the speleothems. दिख रहा है these things hanging from the roof? Can you make out these things hanging from the roof? Huh? That will be called as stalactites. Can you see these rounded bulges? Can you see these smaller rounded bulges that are rising upward from the ground? Those will be called as stalagmites. And these, you know, when the stalagmite and the stalactites join together, this entire thing is called as a pillar. है ना? Clear now? चलो जी, अभी ना you guys take a 5-minute break. And then we'll discuss questions related to this. सॉल्टपीटर कहाँ मिलता है? बिहार में.
बिहार के सदस्य पार्टी कहते हैं कि एक संबंध में तो है प्रोडक्ट और बिहार में मिलता है.
वो बोलते हैं लोकल केमिकल सप्लाई स्टोर में मिलेगा, ऐसा कोई रीजन नहीं है, कोई बहुत बड़ा रीजन नहीं है मार्केट प्लेस उसका. ओके, primarily extracted from Bihar and Uttar Pradesh from the cave walls or bad guano. Yes, yes. बिहार एंड उत्तर प्रदेश में cave walls और bad guano. चल ठीक है, we'll look at why bad guano.
पोटेशियम नाइट्रेट था वो, 1005 अरे हाँ, अर्लियर गन पाउडर एक्सप्लोजन के लिए पानी लगा करता था नहीं? Yes, water was highly required to manufacture early gunpowder. सेफ ग्राइंडिंग के लिए, बिकॉज सॉल्ट पीटर बहुत ज्यादा पानी ये करता है, एंड वेट इनकॉर्पोरेशन के लिए, एंड देन कॉर्न पाउडर यूज करते थे. ठीक है, नो प्रॉब्लम. नहीं यार, दिस इज नॉट द थिंग दैट आई वांट. हाँ जी, 5 मिनट का. अभी जस्ट दिया है, 1 ही मिनट बचा है 5 मिनट में से. तो आपकी अटेंडेंस का शीट भी साथ रखते हैं क्या? उनका नाम क्या है? महबूब सर, ये आप साथ रखते हैं? ठीक, थैंक यू सर. चलो डन, हो गया. 5 मिनट हो गए. हाँ, हम 16-11 को क्या था, 16-16 ना. ठीक है. लेट्स लुक एट ऑल सॉर्ट्स ऑफ क्वेश्चंस हियर. नहीं, नॉट दिस वन. ओके, कास्ट लैंडफॉर्म्स पे क्वेश्चंस करेंगे अब. ये एओलियन है, ये कास्ट है. Which is the dominant process of erosion in a karst topography? Solution, abrasion, deflation, attrition. इरोजन कैसे होता है? सोल्यूशन से, अब्रेजन से, डिफ्लेशन से, या एट्रिशन से? If this is for you both, Fatma and Wes. हाँ जी, which one? Solution, abrasion, deflation, or attrition? Which is the most dominant process of erosion in the karst topography? First one, solution. Solution से होगा नहीं, solution से नहीं होगा. Why not solution? अरे karst topography में we are saying what is the one way in which the gaps will become bigger, the joints will become wider, the material. Okay, the water flows. Okay, it goes through the joints. Meanwhile, the water is not just water. The carbon dioxide in the air has dissolved in the water. What does the water turn into? Carbonic acid, weak carbonic acid. Okay,
This weak carbonic acid goes and reacts with the limestone or the chalk, removes all the calcium carbonate from it by the process of solution and goes its own way. Okay. This is how the gaps become wider and larger. Okay. The holes are formed in the crust of the rock and stuff and all. Okay. So we are saying the process has to be solution. All right. And that is how the deposition is also going to happen, because these huge, what do you say, all this calcium carbonate is going to be dissolved within this rock, within this water. And then when it evaporates, what is left behind will also be a precipitate of the calcium carbonate. Okay. Okay. So solution is going to be your answer. Okay. Wind नहीं यूज कर सकते, ये वाला बताइए, which of the following regions is not relevant as a karst region? इसमें से कौन सा karst region नहीं हो सकता है? मेघालय in India, Rio in Brazil, Dalmatian coast of Croatia, Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico. Which of this is not relevant as a karst region? वो जो limestone and chalk वाला देखा वो, उसको karst region बोला है. Rio na, Rio is should not be that. Dalmatian coast in Croatia is definitely that. Yucatan Peninsula is also that. And then clearly Meghalaya in India is also that. Okay. Ananya, right? I'll try to add you to the group today. I'll speak to Farhana ma'am about it. Okay. I'll speak to Farhana ma'am and see that you're added to one of those groups. Once you're added to the group, let me know. I'll ask the kids to add the PPTs there. All right. Yucatan Peninsula is the one that you feature in the second movie कौन सा था? Black Panther का. Remember where the sister takes over. Remember that? Remember she's going down those sinkholes and she's meeting those people over there. The ones who live underneath the sea and all those people. That is the Yucatan Peninsula. That is essentially that. It is similar to that landscape. That landscape is similar like that. क्या? हाँ मैं समझू. हाँ वो बाहर निकल के बात है. वो नीचे रहते रहता है ना वो बंदा पानी के नीचे. रिमेम्बर दैट. इट्स बीन अ लॉन्ग टाइम बट स्टिल. पिक्चर नहीं देखी आपने? ओके. मैंने भी सोचा बहुत पुराने टाइम पे देखी थी, दोबारा रिपीट नहीं किया. बट मेघालय एंड इंडिया इज फेमस फॉर दैट. सो इज द डाल्मेशियन कोस्ट एंड सो इज द युकातन पेनिनसुला. फेमस लाइमस्टोन रीजन्स है ये. ओके. यारदांग नहीं कर सकते हम लोग. ये वाला क्वेश्चन नंबर 7. Choose the correct statement. Caves are formed by the deposition of calcium carbonate present in the groundwater. A sinkhole is usually an opening that connects the surface of the earth to an underground passage or curve or cave. In an underground cave, the process of carbonation causes the carbon dioxide in the air to be dissolved in what? Water. ये कैसे देखेंगे? But then अगर मैंने देखा तो फिर वो चला जाता है ना. The floor of the cave has to be a permeable rock layer. Let's consider each statement. Okay, we are saying caves are formed by the deposition of carbon dioxide, calcium carbonate. Are caves a depositional feature or an erosional feature? Caves depositional है या erosional है? Stalactites, हाँ correct. Caves deposition से नहीं बनते. Caves erosional features है, right? Caves are erosional features which cannot be formed by deposition. Okay, that is not what it is. The speleothems inside the cave, the stalactites, stalagmites, pillars, those are formed by deposition. But the cave itself is a hollow that is formed by erosional processes, by solution. Okay. A sinkhole is usually an opening that connects the surface of the earth. You are saying the sinkhole will connect the surface of the earth to an underground cave or passage. Yeah, makes sense. That makes sense. In an underground cave, the process of carbonation causes the carbon dioxide in the air to be dissolved in water. I am trying to see now what was the statement over here. Wait a second. Huh? अरे हाँ, लेकिन ये क्या है आगे? हाँ, dissolved in water. In the process of carbonation causes cave में नहीं होता है necessarily, बाहर होगा. इसमें मैंने नहीं देखा. कोल माइंस के ऊपर, अरे अब प्रॉपर रानीगंज के ऊपर मूवी निकाली है क्या उन्होंने? रानीगंज के कोल माइंस के ऊपर. अच्छा ठीक है. वो बंगाली बात कर रहे हैं, हिंदी में ही बात कर रहे हैं. अच्छा ठीक है, नो प्रॉब्लम. I'm trying to figure what is wrong with this statement. It is not, the process of carbonation might not necessarily happen in an underground cave. You getting the third statement that in underground cave, the process of carbonation is simply the mixing of carbon dioxide with the water. Okay, that is carbonation. You understand what carbonated drinks are, right? Carbonated drinks meaning ये soda वोडा जो हम पीते वो. Okay, So we are saying essentially that carbon dioxide is possibly mixed with the water, so that the carbon dioxide, little bubbles can mix in the water, and that is the fizz that you feel, right? The one that you feel on your tongue is the fizz of the carbon dioxide. So you are essentially saying that carbon dioxide is, it is not that it is happening essentially inside an underground cave. It is actually happening outside also. It is because of this that the process of solution is happening. Okay. And the floor of a cave has to be a permeable rock layer? No. The roof has to be a permeable rock layer. If this is the cave, okay, then the roof has to be a permeable layer from which the water can trickle in. Okay, if the water does not trickle in the layer of this, trickle in through this, then clearly the stalactites and stalagmites cannot be formed. Okay, can you explain to me what permeability is? Any one of you, either of you, black, you can answer. What is permeability? What is the permeability of a layer of rock? What does permeability mean? What movement? Movement of a solution through the layer, through a membrane. And bacha, you're talking of biology, right? You're talking of diffusion process and stuff like that. Sodium coming in, sodium going out. You're talking about that, right? I'm talking of geography. We'll concentrate on geography. Tell me what do it mean if in permeability or diffusion in those layers, in those cells, meaning the cells, the minerals are moving across. Then what would permeability mean over here? It has to mean something similar, right? What does that mean? Does that mean the water can move across the layer or it cannot move across the layer? What do you think logically it should mean? Permeability, what should permeability mean? Will the water be allowed to move through the layer? Will it be allowed to pass through the layer through joints and cracks? Or it will not be allowed to pass through the layer? It is allowed. That's correct. That is the more logical this conclusion. Okay. Permeability means that there will be joints and cracks in the rock through which the water can move. Okay. Porosity means that there will be pores. There will be larger, pores between the grains of the material. There will be pore spaces within which the water can be held, like in clay. Okay. So these porosity and permeability have to be remembered. Here in this case, the roof has to be permeable. Otherwise, the water cannot pass through the roof and stalactites and stalagmites cannot be formed. Okay? Okay? Okay. Karst topography refers to landforms formed mainly by running rivers, underground water, wind, or glaciers. Underground water. Absolutely. Underground water is going to be the answer. Okay? They have to be formed through underground water. Bora caves. Bora caves कहाँ lie करते हैं? Meghalaya, Maharashtra, Madhya Pradesh, Andhra. All of these have important caves, right? अपने यहाँ पे आंध्रा में होने चाहिए मेरे हिसाब से, या बोरा केव्स आंध्रा। फेमस केव्स है अपने यहाँ पे, 5 बजे बंद भी हो जाएंगे, ऐसे गूगल बता रहा है। कुछ मिल रहा है मुझको उसका? नहीं। अब बोरा केव्स आर फेमस केव्स इन आंध्र प्रदेश। I just want to see if these are the largest or anything of the sort. There is a story of a lost cow here, but that is that, and it is also the source of a river. सरस्वती नदी भी किसी केव में थी क्या? It is lost. Just like Luni is lost now, that river is actually lost now. एक तो originally Saraswati का thing was, this is India, right? You're saying originally, what we had, that Ganga, Yamuna, Saraswati thing, right? So Yamuna was a tributary of this, and वो Saraswati का फंडा ये हो गया कि earlier Yamuna also used to go on the Indus wala side. See, normally Yamuna and Ganga both go here, right? This is the way Yamuna and Ganga go, and the Indus wala Indus system goes in this side. This is the Indus system, this is the Ganga system, right? Okay. So the Saraswati used to earlier be with the Ganga Yamuna Saraswati combination, and then the uplift of the land happened in this region. Okay, वहां पर land का uplift हो गया, because of which the course of the river changed. Yeah, the course. टेक्टोनिक प्लेट्स की वजह से वो अरावली रीजन में द the slope of the land changed. So that Saraswati River started going in that direction, and it ultimately got lost in that whole Ghaggar Hakra drainage. So ultimately, the river is considered as lost. The Yamuna also used to originally go on that side, but then the course changed and Yamuna started moving towards the Ganga, and that is how the whole combination worked out. So that is the history of our land, proper geographical history of a land. Oh, where were we? Here? Where were we? Here. Okay. ठीक है. Lowest plains नहीं कर सकते, यारदांग्स नहीं है, wind नहीं है, surface stream. Choose. Question number 14. Choose the incorrect statement. The surface stream disappears and reappears through sinkholes on the ground. Pillars are formed when stalactites and stalagmites continue to grow and finally merge into each other. Stalactites grow in from the ceiling of the cave, whereas stalagmites rise from the ground. The surface of a karst region appears to be jointed and fractured. Okay, let's look at the second wala galat lag raha hai. Pillars are formed when stalagmites and stalactites continue to grow and finally merge into each other. चलो ये statement सही है. Pillars तभी बनते हैं जब ऊपर से stalactites from above and stalagmites from below join and they merge together. Okay, so that will be a pillar. Stalactites grow from the ceiling of the cave, whereas stalagmites rise from the ground. This is also correct, right? Stalactites will they not grow from the ceiling; they will hang from the ceiling. But they can grow from the ceiling, and stalagmites can rise from the ground. Okay. The surface of karst region is also jointed and fractured. Stalagmites rise करते हैं ना? Stalagmites ground से rise ही करते हैं ना? छोटे-छोटे bulges बन के they'll rise, right? They'll rise from the ground. So that will definitely be called as a rise. The surface of karst region appears to be jointed and fractured. Yes, you can't walk on those lepes. Remember, we had seen those limestone pavement that is fractured, that is jointed. One cannot walk on that surface. So clearly, it is jointed and fractured. Now, the surface stream, look at the first option. The surface stream disappears and then reappears through the sinkholes. No, if it disappears, it disappears. It goes into a blind valley, but it will not reappear back from the sinkhole. Okay, the water is not coming out of the sinkhole. The river is not coming back again. Okay. So this is the incorrect statement. Statement 1 would be the incorrect statement. Okay. Self का कुछ नहीं कर सकते. Caste के लिए क्या क्या जरूरी है? Question 16. Which of the following is our conditions or factors in the development in the karst topography? 1. Abundant presence of carbon dioxide. चाहिए carbon dioxide? Do you need carbon dioxide for karst topography? क्या है? थोड़ा बहुत होगा तो भी चलेगा, लेकिन कम नहीं होना चाहिए. अच्छा, ठीक है. तो देखते हैं अगर हम 1 को एलिमिनेट कर सकते हैं कहीं से, एंड वी कैन स्टिल वर्क दैट आउट. ओके, लेट्स लुक एट दैट. एक्सट्रीमली कोल्ड एंड एरिड क्लाइमेट. कोल्ड एंड एरिड क्लाइमेट का है ये? नहीं, कोल्ड एंड एरिड क्लाइमेट की जरूरत नहीं है. एरिड इज ओके, बट यू डोंट नीड अ कोल्ड क्लाइमेट. ह्यूमिड इज नेसेसरी. You need a bit of water vapor and all that kind of climate is okay. Then presence of jointed and fractured rocks. Yes, this is a factor, right? Jointed rocks and fractured rocks is something that you find over here. Okay. Presence of water soluble rocks like limestone and clay. Yes, absolutely. Active movement of underground water. Yes. So we are going with 2 छोड़ के बाकी सब कुछ चलेगा हमको. So do we have an option that says 3, 4, 5? No. So we'll have to include 1 also. The abundant presence of carbon dioxide भी लगेगा. Okay. नहीं 2 नहीं चाहिए ना अपने को. Wait a minute. हाँ, 2 नहीं होना चाहिए. 1, 3, 5. ओ क्ले नहीं आ सकता. What is wrong with me? Clay water soluble नहीं है. We can't include clay there. Clay नहीं आ सकता. Clay is not water soluble. What is water soluble? Limestone and chalk are water soluble. Clay is not water soluble. Clay is a porous rock which can hold water. How crazy of me. Clay नहीं include कर सकते. My bad. Okay, we can't include clay over there. Karst topography के erosional features कौन से होते हैं? Which are the erosional features of a karst topography? Stalactites, caves, pillars, or sinkholes? What is erosional feature? Let's see what are erosional features. Caves are erosional features. Pillars are not so. Sinkholes are erosional features. Okay. Pillar is a depositional feature. So is stalactite. So is stalagmite. All are depositional features. Okay. वो किसके जैसा काम करता है? हाँ, लेकिन वो किसी चीज को ब्लॉक नहीं कर रहा है. वो सिर्फ कह रहा है कि यार वो स्टैलेक्टाइट ऊपर से जा रहा है and stalagmite is coming from is growing from downwards, and when they join just a pillar is formed. It just a it's just an aesthetic. It just looks very pretty, but it's not really blocking the cave or making any. It just adds to the aesthetic of the cave. That is what we are saying. It does not have a particular function as per se. Okay. So we are saying that caves and sinkholes are the erosional features, pillars and stalactites are the depositional features. Okay, so we'll go with 2 and 3. Do we have a 2 and 3? Yes, we have a 2 and 3. Okay, these are the erosional features. And then is the Barkans. We are talking about Barkans. We are not doing that. Ventifacts we have done. Mushroom rocks we are done. We are done with this. हो गया? नहीं, अभी आप दोनों के लिए we are going to combine all 5. Remember, we are done with all 5 landforms, right? We are done with all 5 agents of erosion. So I would expect answers from you now. We are going to discuss all the questions. Let's do the topic-wise questions first, and then whatever time is left, let's do the rest of the practice questions, okay? These are the landforms by different ages. The lowest part of most balsams is occupied by a landform called playa. This we did today. Aeolian landforms में किया है हमने ये. Which category of landform formation does it represent? Pluvial, arid, glacial, or periglacial? Remember what a balsan was? Balsan was a valley, okay, that was formed. Okay, it was a valley between two mountains. It is usually formed in a desert landscape. Okay, balsans are formed in a desert landscape. Okay, that is what a balsan is. And we are saying that usually it is occupied by smaller lakes called as playas. Okay, playas or salinas or salars. No, salar meaning salt. Salar is the beginning of a salt. हाँ salt से बनता है, because what happens is if that temporary lake is exposed in a desert landscape to a lot of evaporation, what happens is the water is evaporated, what is left behind is a salt pan. Okay, so a salt formation. So then that is why those lakes are called as salinas or salars or shots, playas. Okay, you're looking at those shots या shots. अफ्रीका में उसको shots या shots बुलाएंगे. I think that movie Salar also probably means कि namak khaya hai. He has eaten the other friend's salt. No, he is indebted to him by the work he provides or by the fact that he has provided him food and shelter. I think that is where it is coming from. Anyways, here we are. The lowest part of a balsan is occupied by a landform called as playa. So ये कौन सी category है? Is this rivers? Is this because of rivers? Is this because of deserts? Is this glacial or it is periglacial? You tell me. कहाँ का लग रहा है आपको? Where do you think this is from? What do you think is the answer? Arid. Shall we go with arid? Arid. ठीक है. Arid is arid. बराबर है. हाँ. ये NDA के actual questions है. This is an actual question from NDA entrance exam. And must have been in the last couple of years, because this is the latest question too in my list. So I usually put in questions by the by how latest they are. So the earlier the question is, the latest they have been in the exams. Okay. Ye wala. Which of the following statements regarding a barkan is correct? It is a crescent-shaped mound of sand which is deposited by the wind blowing constantly from one direction in the desert. The windward side has a convex steep slope with the maximum height at the center, and two ends of the barkan are called as horns and point opposite to the direction the wind blows. Chalo, barkans, we remember the barkans is that normal sand dune we were seeing. Yeah, I can't draw it. Forget that. I simply cannot draw it. Okay. So barkans is that normal sand dune we had seen, right? Like this. This is the barkan. Okay. This is the barkan that we are looking at. Yeah. And they have these horns over here. Okay. On both sides, they will have these horns. So we were discussing if this is crescent shape. Yeah, it is a crescent shaped mound of sand. It is deposited by the wind. Yes. Limited supply of sand. And it is blowing constantly in one direction. Okay. Because it is blowing constantly in one direction, hence such a landform can be formed. So this part of the statement is absolutely correct. Okay. Windward side, meaning if the wind is blowing from this side, the windward side has a convex steep slope with a maximum height at the center. The maximum height at the center is correct, but is the windward side steep? No, it is a gentle side, right? The windward side is always gentle. So this statement is wrong. Okay, this statement would be wrong. Two ends of the Balkans, these horns of the Balkans that we were discussing, they point opposite to the direction the wind blows. No, these horns are pointing in this direction, which is the direction of the wind, the same. So they point in the same direction that the wind blows. Okay, only one is correct. Okay, only one is correct. Fine-grained bed of ephemeral lake in a desert is also known as playa, oasis, drumlin, or natural levees. Ephemeral, what does ephemeral mean? Something that is temporary, okay, that is not permanent. Because these lakes are formed in desert regions, clearly they do not hold water for a long time, and hence they are very temporary features, okay. They will soon turn into salt pans. So the fine-grained bed of ephemeral lake in the desert is called as a playa, actually, okay. Oasis simply contains water, and it will also have vegetation around it, but that is about that, okay. Where did we find drumlins? Which topography did we find drumlins in? Glaciers, rivers, winds, coastal, karst. Where did we find drumlins? We were discussing drumlins yesterday. Basket of eggs. Coastal में नहीं था. Glaciers. We found them in glaciers. Okay. Where did we find natural levees? Is it a landform of the rivers, winds, glaciers, groundwater, rivers? Rivers. Levees are formed on the sides of the rivers. Absolutely correct. Okay. अच्छा ठीक है मैं levees दिखा देती हूँ आपको.
रिवर क्या
Can you see this part? This is the river flowing. Okay. Can you see this little mound by the river? That is called as a natural levee. It is naturally formed. The river brings in the the silt and deposits it on the sides. Okay, just creating a very natural, upward mound over there. Okay, so this is called as a levee. अरे हर रिवर के पास होता है ऐसा. हाँ. वाराणसी. Okay, ठीक है, no problem. Where were we? Topic wise questions. Okay, so we will go with playas. People, the answer here is playas. हाँ वो फर्टाइल होता है, लेकिन उधर हम एग्रीकल्चर नहीं करते, घास वास उग सकता है, लेकिन दैट इज हाउ इट इज. Question 119, basket of X topography is related. Now you people have clearly not done. Drumlins, absolutely correct. Basket of X topography is related to drumlins. Okay, can it be related to esters? What were esters? Depositional or erosional? Esters, nahi. This is a question for all those kids who attended yesterday. Depositional. Esters are depositional. Turks, depositional or erosional? Surfs and quarries, foams, erosional. Absolutely correct. Moraines, depositional or erosional? Deposition. Okay, deposition. Are you did not do glaciers yesterday, no? No worries. Stalactites, stalagmite, and pillars are depositional landforms of running water, wind, glacier, or underground water. Stalactites, stalagmite, pillars are depositional landforms of running water, wind, glacier, or groundwater. Underground water? Yes, underground water. Option. A deep valley characterized by steep step-like slopes is known as U-shaped valley, blind valley, gorges, yeah, canyon. It is deep, okay, and it has step-like slopes. Where did we see this red color thing? Kind of sort of brownish red. I had shown you what that looks like. It is not exactly aeolian, but it is in an arid and semi-arid climate. Where do you find that? Canyons नहीं मिलेंगे वहां पे. वो जो रीजन है ना, छत्तीसगढ़ वाला नहीं, लेकिन उसके आसपास वाला, मध्य प्रदेश एंड उत्तर प्रदेश वाला, चंबल, दैट इज जस्ट, उसको बैडलैंड्स बुलाते हैं, बैडलैंड्स. उस पर्टिकुलर इरोजन को हमारे यहाँ पे बैडलैंड्स बुलाते हैं. because वो बहुत बुरी तरह से erode हो गया है वो पूरा region. Okay, so that is that. Canyons we are looking at. हाँ, खेती बाड़ी नहीं, बिल्कुल भी पॉसिबल नहीं है खेती बाड़ी. रिमेम्बर वहां पे वो डेकोइट्स सारे हाइड किया करते थे. हाँ करेक्ट, वो सारे डेकोइट्स हाइड किया करते थे एंड दैट इज व्हाई. हाँ, ग्रैंड कैनियन. रिमेम्बर कैनियंस? कैनियंस याद है मैंने कहा था हार्ड एंड सॉफ्ट रॉक्स होते हैं. हार्ड सॉफ्ट ऐसे रॉक्स होते हैं. हार्ड रॉक्स का clearly hard rocks will not be eroded much. The soft rocks will be eroded a little more, and clearly that region, that part will get inside. The hard rocks wala part, the part of the hard rocks will protrude outside. Okay, so you find this step-like feature on the valley sides. Okay, and they are very steep, and they are usually found in an arid or a semi-arid region. This is what we call as a canyon. ठीक है? Arizona. Arizona का neighboring country California है. Sorry, neighboring state California होगा. नेवाड़ा बाजू में होगा, उसके बाजू में. हाँ होगा ना बाबा, नेवाड़ा है उसके बाजू में. करेक्ट. नेवाड़ा, यूटा, कोलोराडो, न्यू मैक्सिको सब आएगा बाजू में. हाँ, कैलिफोर्निया के अंदर मिलेगी आपको इसको में. Okay. Good for her or him because they are paying 44% taxes. I find that very scary to live in that state because who wants to pay 44% taxes, man? No, he doesn't have to be poor. He has to be really rich to pay 44% taxes to the government. That is what अपने यहाँ पे कैसे throughout India you pay the same slab of taxes, right? So if you say if you're earning say between 5 to 10 lakhs, then you are in a certain slab. If you're earning from 10 above, you're in a certain slab. If you're earning from anywhere between less than 5, then you're in a certain slab. Okay. So that is the maximum taxation. Say 30% is the maximum taxation that you will find in India, right? So in USA, every state has a different rate of taxes of taxation because it's a federal government. Okay, so it means every state gets its own right to make its own laws. Okay, so as far as taxation laws are concerned, every single state will make its own laws. So California chooses to go with in the 44% tax bracket. So people are actually trying to get out of that state and go to other different states because it is like saying if I earn 100 rupees, 44 rupees will belong to the government flat, no matter what. Okay, so if I'm in the higher earning bracket, and most who is living in California, software professionals, correct, IT engineers, and then those rich people, the people from Hollywood and all. Okay, so everybody is earning very well, and clearly they are going to pay off. You're saying you're going to pay off 44% of your taxes. So clearly people are trying to move out of that state and go to some other places where the taxation is a little lesser. Okay, even New York, state of New York doesn't cost as much. उनके भी taxation rates उतने नहीं है. नहीं नहीं नहीं, उनका कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन बिल्कुल अलाउ नहीं करता है टू डू दैट. दैट्स अ वेरी डिफरेंट कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन. इट सेज कि although states are bound together, they cannot separate. You can the central government cannot force the state to do anything, and it cannot. It is an अपने यहाँ पे कैसे states के boundaries, the boundaries of our states can shift, right? You can say we'll break the state in twos, and then we'll make out of we'll make one Bihar and we'll make one Jharkhand and all that sort of thing. So in USA, this won't be allowed. They are indivisible. You cannot touch the boundary of those states. You can't do that kind of gerrymandering that we do in Indian or British politics. You understand what gerrymandering is? You say, for example, if this is say there is a certain boundary for a particular state, okay, and sometimes constituencies can lie on the borders of a boundary, right? Okay, so gerrymandering is shifting the boundaries and including the constituency in either that state or this state for your own political benefits. Okay, so for example, I understand, say suppose I'm a politician and I understand that this particular constituency should belong to me, should be somewhere near me, so that I will get the maximum votes here. Okay, so what you do is that is called as gerrymandering. You know, manipulate the borders of that particular constituency and say this is the new law, this is the new legislation, because the parliament is allowed to do that. And we say that now this particular constituency belongs to this part where I get the political benefit. Okay, so mostly politicians do it for that sake. So this is possible in India. This is possible in the United Kingdom, but it is never ever possible in USA. In USA, you cannot do all this. You cannot touch the boundaries of individual states. Okay. Anyways, back to geography. Which one of the following is not a coastal depositional feature? Tombolo, sandbar, stack, or spit? Stack. Stack is an erosional feature. Remember old man of Orkney? Yes. So stack is an erosional feature. Okay. Tombolo was that one that joined two headlands. You know, that was a tombolo. Sandbar is something that simply occupied the entrance of the bay. Spit was something that, a strip of land that existed, that extended from the headland onward. So that is a spit. Rameshwaram जैसे है वैसे. Okay. ठीक है. Which one of the following is our coastal erosional features? कहाँ दिख रहा है आपको पूरा? Okay. Can you make this out? Which of the following is our coastal erosional features? Is notch an erosional feature? Notch, sea arches, cliffs, and hooks. If you find a depositional feature, remove that from the list. Cliff is erosional. We'll go with cliff being an erosional feature. Sea arch is erosional. Cliff is that, this is the cliff. Remember the cliff of our notch? Every place has, most coastline will have cliffs, especially on the western side. Which one? 8 seconds. Which one are you saying? Pulicat should have a low sedimentary coast ideally. Lagoon बन रहा है ना वहाँ पे. Cliff is erosional. Okay. Is hook an erosional feature? Was we were saying this is the headland. Say suppose this was the headland. Okay, this is the headland. We are saying the spit attaches itself to it over here and then turns around like this. It curves around. Then it becomes a hook. So is hook a erosional feature? No, it is a depositional feature. Okay, so hook cannot be that. What else is available? Sea arch. Sea arch is sea arch an erosional feature? Remember what a sea arch was? We were saying this is the headland. The headland extends into the sea. A small cave is formed over here. If caves are formed on both sides of the headland, it becomes a proper arch. Okay. Is sea arch an erosional feature or a depositional one then? Erosional. Okay. So sea arch is erosional. Notches. I did not explain the notch to you. अरे हाँ वही कर रही हूँ मैं. हाँ, नहीं. I need a. This is a good diagram. Yeah, the notch you'll understand very well. Okay. Can you see this? What happens is this is the cliff. Okay. This is the edge of the cliff. The waves come in here and attack the lowermost part of the cliff. Okay. And this is how the wave cut notch is first formed. Okay. And then when this notch extends upward, this notch becomes bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And ultimately, this face of the cliff will then fall down. Okay. All that unsupported cliff face will fall down. And now the new cliff will be stationed somewhere over here. Okay. So this is your wave cut platform below. This is the wave cut terrace or wave cut platform below. And this is the little notch. The one that is a small gap or hollow that is formed at the base of the cliff is called as a notch. Okay. The sea notch or a wave cut notch or whatever, however you would like to refer to it. Is this erosional then? Yes, it is most definitely erosional. Okay? Because material is removed from there. That is essentially what you're saying. So you're saying notch is erosional, sea arch is erosional, and so is the cliff, not the hook. Okay, so we are going with 1, 2, and 3. Okay. नहीं, एक और है. Match the following. You have to match the. Can you see this? Can you make it out at all? Groundwater, running water, glaciers, and winds are the agents. I'll make it bigger. We lose the options, but okay, we'll just match it over here. Okay. Groundwater, running water, glaciers, and winds are the agents, geomorphic agents. And the features that are formed are plunge pools, horns, playas, and lapis. Okay. Name one which you know. Groundwater, what will groundwater make? Plunge pools, horns, playas, or lapis? Lapis, playa, lapis, लैपिस नहीं बनाएंगे अभी तो देखा वो लैपिस लाइमस्टोन पेमेंट बनाया था है ना वी मेड अ लाइमस्टोन पेमेंट ओवर हियर देयर वर ब्लॉक्स व्हिच वर कॉल्ड एज स्लिंट्स एंड गैप्स दैट वर कॉल्ड एज ग्राइव्स करेक्ट सो वी विल गो विद ग्राउंड वाटर गोes with लैपिस okay then next running water what does running water go with running water goes and forms plunge pools remember at the base of the waterfall okay so that is the plunge pool over there then glaciers will form pyramidal peaks or horns. Remember, like Everest or Matterhorn or something like that. Yeah. So glaciers will form pyramidal peaks or horns. And then you will have the winds. Winds will form playas. Okay. This is the combination. So you are essentially looking at 4, 1, 2, 3. A से शुरू करना पड़ेगा ना 4, 1, 2, 3. We are going with 4, 1, 2, 3. 4, 1, 2, 3. A will be the answer. Okay. A will be the answer 4, 1, 2, 3. Okay. Moving forward, which of the following combinations of stalactites and stalagmites occurrences is correct? Okay. Stalactites hang as icicles of different diameters. Stalagmites hang from the floor of the caves. Stalagmites hang as icicles of different diameters. Stalagmites rise from the floor of the caves. Stalactites rise from the floor of the caves. Stalagmites hang as icicles. And stalactites hang as icicles of different diameters. And stalagmites also hang as icicles of different diameters. First of all, stalactites are going to hang and stalagmites are going to rise. Okay, correct? This is going to happen. And there is only one way to do that. The second way, that stalactites will hang as icicles and stalagmites will rise from the floor of the caves. Okay, this is how this is going to work. So we'll go with option 2. And we are done. हाँ 5 मिनट है अभी भी तो हम थोड़े और क्वेश्चंस कर सकते हैं बैक टू द बेसिक एजेंट्स 5 मिनट ही करना है which of the following terms is not associated with river capture elbow of capture incised meanders wind gap or misfit not associated with river capture huh elbow of capture we are saying this was one stream of water huh we are saying this is another stream of water okay we are saying this one went back all the way okay this is the river this one went back all the way and captured this water okay so now the water started flowing in this direction okay this is the river capture huh misfit no okay so we are saying that the point at which the capture happened is called as the elbow of capture okay okay this poor stream whose supply was lost you know this water supply was lost right so this poor stream get called as the misfit okay this area in the middle where the water does not flow anymore, you know, this area, the one that has crisscrossed and become made all messy and dirty, that is called as the wind gap. What is left behind? Incised meanders. They are associated with river rejuvenation. Remember, you were saying that originally meander loops were carved on soft rock. And then the river started eroding far more rapidly and it carved those loops inside harder rocks. Okay, the harder rock lying beneath the softer rock. So incised meanders were something related to river rejuvenation, not to river capture. Okay, so incised meanders is that answer. तो नदी में जहां डेपोजिशन करना चाहिए था वहां इट स्टार्ट्स टू इरोड एक्टिवली बिकॉज ऑफ बीइंग रेजुविनेटेड वो वापस यंग हो जाती है बिकॉज अपलिफ्ट हो जाता है लैंड पर या सी लेवल ड्रॉप करता है आइदर ऑफ दीज थिंग्स हैपन एंड बिकॉज ऑफ दैट जहां इट वाज नॉर्मली डिपॉजिटिंग अर्लियर इट स्टार्ट्स टू एक्टिवली इरोड व्हिच मींस जहां वो नॉर्मल सॉफ्ट लैंड पे meanders फॉर्म कर रही थी वहां पे वो ऐसे नहीं यू कार्व थिंग्स इनसाइड वो नए सिरे से एक लूप कार्व करके इनसाइड अ रॉक लाइक ग्रेनाइट और सैंडस्टोन और समथिंग लाइक दैट ओके all right. The force load deposited by the river at the base of a gentle mountain slope is called delta, cataract, spur, or alluvial fan. At the base of a mountain, gentle mountain slope, at the base of a gentle mountain slope, whatever force load is deposited by the river is called as, what is it called? Alluvial fan? Fan. It is the alluvial fan. Okay? Okay. What is a delta? It is a depositional landform at the end of the river, okay, in the sea. What is a cataract? Remember the water used to jump like you had rapids. If that was a larger dimension, then that became a cataract. Okay. Spurs, remember I had shown you that picture of river rafting? I had said that because there is a outcrop of a harder rock embedded within softer rocks, the river jumps. Okay. So if it jumps for a shorter distance, we call that as a rapid. If it is a larger jump, then we call that as a cataract. And what is the way to solve a cataract? To build a dam, level out the water. There will be no cataracts. So your ships are not jumping over the cataracts. Okay. Okay. Human beings can do that over rafts. That is an adventure sport. Which of the following is an erosional landform of glacial action? Erratics, eskers, arets, or drumlins? Erosional landform. We are looking at erosional landforms. Erratics, eskers, arets, or drumlins. 3 of them are depositional, 1 of them is erosional. You guys unfortunately have not done that, so लेकिन उन लोगों ने किया है टंग 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 वो बताएंगे जवाब कौन सा वाला बोल रहा है सेकंड एस्कर्स आर इरोजनल सेकंड बता रहे हैं आप मुझको अच्छा एरेट्स होते हैं वो रिमेंबर वी डिस्कस कि once say suppose this was the land okay जो था अपने पास originally land from the glaciers okay where the glacier was coming down the glacier carves one ice stream scope over here another ice stream scope over here okay cirques बनाता है what is left in the middle that ragged jagged serrated ridge is left behind we call that as an arete okay so an arete is basically you will need to go through these landforms over and over again to familiarize yourself with it unfortunately that's the only way अरेट का फोटो दिखाओ ओके नो प्रॉब्लम व्हाट इज दिस नहीं वो कान का बाल ही नहीं हो सकता है I'm trying to see if we can get this is a good thing right Aret I can slow stabilize have you good India Afghanistan oh yeah sorry what were you saying Acha, here we are saying cirque on one side cirque on another side this jagged serrated ridge is called as arete okay this jagged serrated ridge this jagged serrated ridge is called as an arete there is a cirque on this side there is a cirque on that side and perhaps a cirque on the other side as well okay so this jagged serrated ridge gets called as an arete okay हाँ उसी स्नो लाइन पे मिलेगा ओके आई रिलीज यू गो बी हैप्पी वी आर डन हाँ अभी छुट्टी मुझे आपका शेड्यूल नहीं पता मेरी छुट्टी आई डोंट नो वेयर यू आर गोइंग नेक्स्ट थैंक यू फॉर जॉइनिंग मी Ananya, are you still here? I'll try to talk to Farhana ma'am today and see that you get added to the group, one of the groups, okay? And whichever group you are on, ask for the notes and then I'll post the notes to that group, okay?